Chapter 42. The eldest prince's pupils shrank and his expression darkened. Insolent martial artist, this is a matter of the royal family. Why aren't you backing down? Otherwise, you won't be able to escape death in the vast Fenglin Empire. Although the seventh heaven of the martial path was strong, it was far from enough to fight against the empire. Xia Linxian was also at the seventh sky of the martial path, but at this moment, he didn't dare to interfere. It was obvious that he was very afraid of the empire. The old man's wrinkled face twitched and he sneered. I'm not from the Fenglin Empire. You're just a prince. What can you do to me? After saying this, he grabbed Su Yu with one hand and Xian'er with the other, coldly glaring at Bai Qixing. Still not going to scram? With just a glance, Bai Qixing's face turned pale, his heart thumped, and he subconsciously stopped. The Duke of Xianyu withdrew and bowed gratefully. Thank you, Elder Qin, for helping me out. This person was Old Qin. Old Man Qin's aged eyes scanned the surroundings. The might of a level 7 caused everyone's limbs to turn cold. No one dared to take even half a step forward. Duke, leave. The Fenglin Empire is no longer a place for you. Old Qin sighed desolately. The Duke of Xianyu was grief-stricken. He had stayed in the Xinyu prefecture for decades, and it had long become his hometown. Now, he was forced to leave the empire and flee the country because of the treacherous people. Filled with nostalgia, the Duke of Xianyu flew away and chased after Senior Qin, embarking on his journey of betrayal. The Duke of Xianyu was about to leave with the old man. The first prince's face was filled with hostility. He gritted his teeth in pain and bellowed furiously, "Stay here!" Pa! The first prince smashed a pendant hidden on his neck with a palm strike. Buzz, buzz, buzz! An extremely terrifying aura swept out in all directions. A tall, fiery red figure suddenly appeared behind him. The silhouette was blurry, and it seemed to be formed by the condensation of true qi. However, it exuded a terrifying pressure. Old Qin's face suddenly became serious. The 8th level of the martial path. Not good. Let's go. That figure was an expert at the 8th heavenly layer of the martial path. It was formed from true qi and contained the 8th heavenly layer of the martial path's fatal blow. Even Old Qin, who was at the 7th heaven, would perish instantly. This item was the first prince's final defensive treasure. It was extremely precious and could only be used once. You want to leave? Too late. Kill them. The first prince laughed maliciously, his killing intent rising. Hoo-hoo! The fiery red figure moved, covering the sky and earth. A terrifying might that could exterminate countless creatures swept out in all directions. The guests were all prostrating on the ground, unable to move. They were horrified to the extreme. Old Man Qin's face turned serious, which was rare for him, and he quickly ran away. However, how could he escape an attack from an 8th layer of heaven? Rumble! A 10-feet-long flaming blade slashed out from the fiery red figure. Chila! The air burned and a violent whimper erupted. Air currents swirled wildly, and a fiery wind blew in all directions, causing people to feel suffocated. Elder Qin opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. Before the flaming saber could even reach him, he had already suffered a heavy injury from the aftershock. With a bitter smile, Old Qin knew that he was going to die here. However, at this moment, Shua, a figure actually flew behind Old Qin and used his flesh body to block the terrifying flaming blades. Old Qin, Xian'er and Yuer, please take care of them. The Duke of Xianyu's eyes were filled with despair as he looked back. There was only so much he could do. Royal Prince. Old Man Qin's expression changed as he roared in shock. Leave quickly. As long as Xian'er and Yuer are alive, I have no regrets in this life. The Duke of Xianyu let out a desolate laugh. Old Man Qin could not bear to see this happen. He clenched his teeth and took the 2 children with him as he flew away. Su Yu only had a sliver of consciousness. He looked at the Duke of Xianyu. In order to protect them, He had stayed behind to block the fatal blow. His heart was filled with unspeakable sorrow. A heart-wrenching grief roared in his heart. Why did this happen? Su Yu, take care of Xian for me, please. The Duke of Xianyu held back his tears, leaving behind a benevolent yet desolate smile. This smile was an eternal farewell. The next moment, he was engulfed by the boundless flames. This was the last scene that Su Yu saw. The Duke of Xianyu, whom he had treated like a father, had given up his life for him and Xian. No. Su Yu roared with all his might. An unprecedented hatred reverberated in his heart. That hatred seemed to want to explode his body, to destroy the heavens and earth, to destroy all shackles. First Prince! Su Yu let out a deafening roar. Endless hatred and murderous intent lingered in the heavens, piercing through the clouds. If I do not kill you, I, Su Yu, will never be human. Bang! The Duke of Xianyu blocked most of the flames, but there was still a remnant that spread, engulfing Old Man Qin's back. Old Man Qin spat out a mouthful of blood, severely injured in an instant. But he used the momentum to escape the Duke's manor, quickly escaping the Xianyu prefecture with the two children. Su Yu's oath reverberated in the sky above the Duke's manor, unwilling to dissipate. That hatred pierced through the heavens, burning the mountains, rivers, and earth, as if it wanted to bury the entire world. Those who heard it were shocked, a chill running down their spines. That oath was terrifyingly persistent. The first prince's heart thumped wildly, a sliver of unease quickly creeping into his heart. As a prince, as someone with imperial power, it was rare for him to feel uneasy. The auditorium was in a mess. The fiery red figure gradually dissipated. What was left was a 10-foot-long, frighteningly deep groove. But in the deep groove lay a middle-aged man on the brink of death. His right arm had turned to dust, dripping with fresh blood. His entire body was weak, on the brink of death. It was the Duke of Xianyu, who was still alive. Even Old Man Qin could not survive a blow, but the Duke of Xianyu had luckily survived. Third brother, what do you mean? The first prince's eyes glowed fiercely glaring at the third prince. It was the third prince who had used his precious amulet to save the Duke of Xianyu at that critical moment. Otherwise, the Duke of Xianyu would not have simply lost his right arm, but would have been burned to ashes. The third prince was still smiling, his voice warm. First brother, we are here to escort the Duke back to the imperial capital. If we were to kill him on the spot, how would we explain it to the world? Could it be that he would have the reputation of killing a royal prince without distinguishing right from wrong? If we caused the other dukes to feel uneasy, causing the empire to fall, how would you explain it to the world? You. The first prince was furious, but he knew that the third prince's words were reasonable. With an uncertain expression, the first prince stared at the third prince, angrily shouting, "We will split into two groups. One group will escort the Duke back to the imperial capital, the other group will pursue the Princess of Xianyu." The matter was settled. The Duke's right arm was crippled, becoming a cripple, and he was reduced to a prisoner. The Xianyu prefecture was no more. But the first prince had suffered heavy losses. The second prince had been killed. His right eye was crippled and his face was ruined. Compared to getting rid of the Xianyu prefecture, the price that the first prince had to pay was too high. Furthermore, the vow that the Duke of Xianyu's son-in-law had made before he escaped became a thorn in the first prince's heart, making him feel uneasy. If he could do it all over again, the first prince would never want to attack the Xianyu prefecture. The price was too high. The people of the royal family retreated. Before the third prince left the duke's manor, he lightly sighed. A loyal duke should not end up like this. I can only help you this much. As the guests retreated, Duke Qin and many other nobles followed the first prince. They were the first prince's supporters, and on this trip back to the imperial capital, they would naturally travel with the first prince. Along the way, the first prince summoned Duke Qin. I heard that your son had a conflict with Su Yu? The right side of the first prince's face was wrapped in bandages, and the piercing pain caused his tone to be cold. Su Yu had shocked the world with a single brilliant feat, and he naturally wanted to find out more about Su Yu. It was not difficult for him to obtain such insider information. Duke Qin did not dare hide the truth, for a woman. Thinking about this, Duke Qin was filled with remorse. He had known that Su Yu had hidden his abilities so well, and that he was so terrifying. He was a prodigy of souls, and a holy decree comprehender. No matter what, he would have stopped his son from fighting over a woman with him. But now it was too late for regrets. Then, the important task of getting rid of Su Yu will be handed to you, the first prince said hatefully. Duke Qin's body trembled, his face pale. First prince, please have mercy. Su Yu is a bearer of the Holy Seal. Once it is discovered that the Qin manor has acted against him, the entire Qin clan will be executed. How could Duke Qin not understand that the first prince was worried that he would be punished by the Holy King if he acted against Su Yu? Hence, he had asked the Qin family to act on his behalf. In the future, when the matter was exposed, the Qin family would be the scapegoat, and it would have nothing to do with the first prince. The first prince coldly grunted. Do you think that Su Yu will let you off in the future? I do not believe that Su Yu will forget about the hatred of killing his father and stealing his wife. If you do not get rid of him while he is still young, your Qin family will be exterminated in the future. Duke Qin was silent for a moment, and his eyes gradually became stern. How could he not understand this logic? The only thing we can do now is to assassinate him. Your Qin manor has nurtured many experts, and it is time to give them an important task. If this matter is successful, when the first prince ascends to the throne, it will be your credit. Having seen Su Yu's terrifying talents, the first prince was extremely afraid of Su Yu. I understand. Duke Qin's heart was cold, and he gradually made up his mind. After a pause, Duke Qin said, Then, what should we do with that woman, Su Yu? Should we kill her, or— The first prince waved his hands. No need, take good care of her. She might come in handy in the future. Duke Qin understood that he would not kill her, nor would he touch her. He sighed in his heart. His son and Jiang Xueqing's engagement ceremony would have to be delayed. At least before Su Yu died, he could not touch her. In the depths of the dense forest of the Twilight Mountains, Senior Qin's face was pale, and he put down the two children. Xian'er had suffered a huge blow, and had long since fainted. Su Yu's body had been tempered by the jade fire marrow, and was different from a normal person's. Furthermore, the healing effects of the Holy Order had healed his serious injuries, and the bloody hole in his abdomen had stopped bleeding. The effects of the Holy Order are not bad, but your body is even more remarkable. You actually recovered from your serious injuries. Senior Qin was surprised. Su Yu's eyes were dull, and he did not want to say anything. The scene of the Duke of Xianyu's death lingered in his mind. Sigh. Feeling Su Yu's sorrow, Senior Qin sighed, Rest here for a while. I will look for some herbs to heal your injuries. This place is very safe, and no demonic beasts will attack. After Senior Qin left, the cave was silent. After an unknown amount of time, Xian'er woke up from her coma. No. Father! Once she woke up, her mind was filled with the scene of the Duke of Xianyu's death, and her pathetic screams. Her once joyous laughter, her innocent and lively voice, was heartbreaking. Chapter 43. Xian'er, don't cry. Su Yu's voice was hoarse as he tried to comfort her. Brother Su Yu, father. Xian'er threw herself into his arms, hugging his neck as she wept loudly. Su Yu's eyes were moist as he choked back tears. Don't cry. If father saw you crying in the afterlife, he wouldn't be able to rest in peace. Xian'er rubbed her swollen eyes with her small hands, trying not to cry. However, tears still rolled down her cheeks. Her small body trembled like a leaf in the autumn wind, rustling and trembling. Father is gone. I don't have a father anymore. It was the first time in her life that Xian had fallen into loneliness. Fear, helplessness, and uncertainty filled her heart. Su Yu embraced her tenderly and stroked her head. Xian, you still have me. I will be by your side. A wave of warmth flowed into her heart. Xian raised her head. Her big eyes, which seemed to have matured overnight, looked at her fiancé carefully. His determined and warm eyes were filled with a comforting smile, as well as the shocking blood scabs on his face. Xian bit her lip as she stretched out her hand to carefully remove the scabs. Every time he took out a piece, his heart ached a little more, and his bean-sized eyeballs grew by one. This blood had been shed for her. Xian you. Su Yu was confused. He felt that Xian seemed to have feelings for him that she had never felt before. In the past, Xian was willful and playful. In her heart, Su Yu was just a familiar playmate. After experiencing such a drastic change in her life, she had become much more sensible. Brother Su Yu. Xian suddenly hugged Su Yu's neck with all her strength, as if she was afraid that Su Yu would leave her the next moment. Her father had passed away, and Su Yu was her only remaining relative, even if he was only her fiancé for a day. Feeling Xian's trembling body, Su Yu patted her back silently. At this moment, Su Yu could feel Xian's feelings without needing to say anything. A man and a woman were quietly hugging each other. After going through such a great ordeal, their hearts had gradually become one. After a long while, Xian finally stopped sobbing. She rubbed her head against Su Yu's chest and raised her head. Her red and swollen eyes were filled with shyness. I want to be brother Su Yu's bride forever. Su Yu lowered his head and kissed her forehead. His heart was filled with tender affection. You will always be my bride. Xian's cheeks were slightly flushed as she lay peacefully in Su Yu's embrace. After losing her father, her heart had once again found a safe harbor to rely on. Shua Old Qin returned with the medicinal herbs. He stared at the scene with a complicated expression. She quietly prepared the healing medicine for Su Yu, and Xian rushed to apply it on Su Yu. Xian, who used to be playful, was now like a good wife and loving mother. She was carefully taking care of Su Yu, and her face was filled with satisfaction. Half a day later, he rested well. Senior Qin said unhurriedly, "Young Princess Su Yu, according to the Duke's last wish, I will bring both of you away from the Fenglin Empire and head toward the Fenghuang Empire where the young princess's mother is. There are people from the young princess's mother's family there, and they will take good care of her in the future. Both of you should prepare to depart." The young princess's mother was actually a citizen of the Phoenix Empire? Su Yu recalled the mark of a nine-tailed phoenix on the back of the young princess's neck. The eldest prince's claim of treason to capture the regional king was not groundless. The Duke of Xianyu's treason was false, but it was true that he had connections with people from other countries. Now, he and Qin Xian had to leave the Fenglin Empire to another country? Su Yu's cold eyes flickered. Old Qin, bring Xian with you. I will stay behind. Someone has to avenge the regional king. If Su Yu did not kill the first prince, he would never be a human. Senior Qin sighed. Let me ask you, how are you going to avenge him? As the first prince, he lives deep within the palace and has tens of thousands of elites under him. There are countless high-level fighters. With your abilities, do you think you can kill him? An individual's martial strength is unable to contend against the empire. He has a high status as the first prince of a nation. Making an enemy out of him is the same as making an enemy out of the empire. Even a level 9 expert would find it difficult to contend against the empire. Old Qin said sincerely. Su Yu's desire for revenge did not waver. 10 years is not too long for a gentleman to take revenge. If I cannot take revenge in a day, what about a year? 10 years? What about using my entire life's effort? One day, I will take my revenge. Senior Qin was moved. This person was truly someone who valued relationships and favors. He was grateful for the regional king's kindness and wished to repay it with his life. Senior Qin could not bear to see such a talent waste his entire life on revenge. After a while, he sighed, "Actually, it is not impossible for you to take revenge, but the chances are very slim. Please advise me, Senior Qin." Su Yu was moved. Senior Qin pointed to the holy seal between Su Yu's brows. "That's it." Su Yu did not understand. The holy order is only the right to participate in the holy meat. How can it shake the Fenglin Empire? The holy order cannot, but what about the holy king? Senior Qin's eyes were filled with respect. The holy king? He was a legend who could change the Fenglin Empire's royal family with just a thought. If it was him, he could easily do so. But how could Su Yu get the help of the holy king? The holy meet you are participating in actually has another meaning. It is a competition to become a sanctuary disciple. As long as you enter the top 10 in the holy meet, you will have hope of becoming a sanctuary disciple. What? Sanctuary disciple? Su Yu was moved. The master of the sanctuary was the holy king. If he became a sanctuary disciple, wouldn't he have the opportunity to meet the holy king? As long as the holy king agreed, Su Yu could take his revenge. Moreover, if you are able to obtain the first place in the holy meet, you will have the chance to get a promise from the holy king. Any condition is fine. Senior Qin's eyes were burning. In other words, Su Yu could promise to kill the first prince. Su Yu clenched his fists. Fine. I, Su Yu, will definitely win the holy meet and kill the first prince. Senior Qin did not hold out much hope, lightly shaking his head. The holy meet is in 10 days. With your abilities, it will be difficult for you to enter the top 30, much less the first place. Back then, Bai Qixiong, who was at level 6 lower tier of the martial paths, was unable to enter the top 10. Su Yu could not even defeat a level 5 peak. How could he win the championship? Moreover, Senior Qin sighed, moreover, with the talent you have displayed, the first prince will not allow you to live. If you stay in the Fenglin Empire, you will definitely be killed. Why don't you follow me to the Fenghuang Empire? I will ensure your safety. After a moment of silence, Su Yu's desire for revenge had not been extinguished. My father treated me like a son. As a son, how can I not take revenge for my father's death? Su Yu clenched his fist. Xian'er grabbed Su Yu's sleeves, her watery eyes filled with hatred and determination. Brother Su Yu, I will follow you. I will also take revenge for my father. Patting her small head, Su Yu lightly shook his head. No. Xian'er, I alone am enough. Between us, one of us must live. Don't let down our father's sacrifice for us. He could take the risk alone, there was no need to implicate Xian'er. No. I am Brother Su Yu's bride, even if I die, I want to be with Brother Su Yu. Xian'er was stubborn. She had already lost her father, she could not lose Su Yu as well. A palm strike suddenly landed on her neck, causing her to fall into Su Yu's embrace. Su Yu retracted his palm and kissed her forehead tenderly, gently saying, Xian'er, live well. He handed her over to Senior Qin and bowed to thank him. Thank you, Senior Qin. Senior Qin had a complicated expression as he sighed. The Duke can rest in peace with such a son-in-law. Take care of yourself. I will send the young princess to the Fenghuang Empire. If you wish to visit her in the future, you can bring this token to Fenghuang Valley. Senior Qin tossed him a phoenix-shaped token. His eyes were complicated as he hesitantly reminded Su Yu, but if your cultivation level is not high enough, do not come. Otherwise, you will bring trouble upon yourself. Su Yu's heart trembled. What kind of holy land was Fenghuang Valley? That was why Senior Qin had warned him so seriously. Whoosh, Senior Qin carried the unconscious young princess and disappeared into the forest. Su Yu kept the token and recuperated on the spot. Although his injuries were serious, with his strong body, the holy order, and the help of Senior Qin's herbs, he quickly recovered. 2 days later, Su Yu's injuries were mostly healed. He suddenly opened his eyes, glistening. A powerful energy filled his limbs and bones, far surpassing that of a level 4 upper tier. As he punched and slapped, the crackling sounds of beans being fried could be heard continuously. This is a blessing in disguise. After a few serious injuries, the jade fire marrow in my body was stimulated, allowing my cultivation level to break through. Suyu was overjoyed as he felt his cultivation level reach level 4p. With the holy meat at hand, any increase in cultivation level was extremely valuable. If I were to meet the first prince again, I might be able to fight him alone. Suyu's eyes were filled with murderous intent. If the first prince was not killed, Suyu would never be able to rest in peace. Russell, Suyu's ears trembled slightly. A strange sound entered his ears. It was not the sound of an animal in the forest, but the sound of human footsteps. With a serious expression, Suyu's eyes turned and he silently left the cave. Using cloud shadow, he was like the shadow of a white cloud, like duckweed floating on the waves of a river. He suddenly flew 2 miles away and hid behind a crack in the rock. Suyu's eyes gradually turned into crystals. With his powerful eyesight, he could clearly see 2 miles away. Every blade of grass, every tree, every insect, and every bird seemed to be right in front of him. Swoosh, swoosh. 3 middle-aged men dressed like hunters sneakily approached the cave. They hid in the bushes 200 feet away, not moving an inch. The middle-aged man in the lead had a scar between his brows. His abilities were at level 5p. The 2 young men on his left and right were at level 5 upper tier. This powerful combination was enough to wipe out any strong martial artist below level 6. Suyu laughed coldly. How could a strong level 5 martial artist be willing to be a hunter? Without a doubt, they were sent by the first prince to assassinate Suyu. A few days ago, Senior Qin had escaped in a hurry, inevitably leaving behind traces. 2 days was enough for the pursuers to find him. Suyu had the holy mark on him. Even if the first prince had the guts, he would not dare to kill Suyu openly. Only assassination could solve the problem once and for all. Bodyguard Chen, what should we do? The 2 hunters on his left and right were experienced, using their eyes to communicate. Bodyguard Chen, a level 5 peak, was the leader. The 3 of them were originally the personal bodyguards that escorted the Duke of Qin to the engagement ceremony of the Duke of Xianyu's daughter. 2 days ago, they were secretly ordered to assassinate Suyu. At first, they were shocked. But when the Duke of Qin made them unable to resist the temptation, they took the risk and assassinated Suyu. They were prepared to die on this trip. If Suyu did not die, they would. Anyone who dared to attack a holy seal-bearer would not be able to escape death. The scar between bodyguard Chen's eyebrows wiggled, his fierce eyes carefully observing the surroundings. There are no snakes, insects, rats, or ants near the cave. This means that there are people in the cave, and the wild beasts do not dare approach. The footprints near the cave entrance are fresh, which means that there has been some activity recently. In conclusion, it is highly likely that they are still in the cave, or have just left not long ago. Bodyguard Chen was experienced. After some observation, he made a deduction that was close to the truth. The 2 of you keep watch in secret. I will go back and inform Lord Bai Qixiong. Bodyguard Chen said softly. Like a green snake in the grass, he moved cautiously, returning along the path he came from. With Senior Qin, who was at level 7 of the martial path, Bodyguard Chen and 2 level 5 upper tiers would not be able to kill Suyu. To ensure that nothing went wrong, the first prince secretly ordered Bai Qixiong to coordinate from the side, and gave him a treasure that could release a level 7 peak attack. If necessary, he could kill Senior Qin. The 2 level 5 upper tier experts stayed behind to keep watch. The 2 of them concentrated, like cheetahs lying in ambush. Their eyes were sharp and they did not move. A few minutes passed. Whoosh, there was a sudden change. Chapter 44. Enemy Attack. The 2 of them had amazing hearing. They quickly turned around, their expressions changing in shock. 100 meters behind them, a red-robed youth had mysteriously appeared. He had a jade crown and black hair, as handsome as a fairy. He stood proudly on an ancient tree, looking down at the two of them. His eyes were as deep as the starry sky, filled with a cold, killing intent. He held a fiery red bow in his hand. Clang! At the critical moment, the hunter on the left took out his embroidered knife and used it to block the arrow. "It's Suyu." The two of them were shocked, looking at each other as they flanked Suyu from both sides. "Be careful, it is said that he has comprehended the holy decree. Let's split up and attack, don't give him a chance to attack." Suyu's cold eyes were filled with killing intent. His red robe and black hair danced in the wind. With a light tap of his feet, he floated to the ground like a feather. The two hunters attacked from the left and right, their murderous intents cold. Suyu stood still, motionless. He did not try to escape. Only when the two hunters were within 100 feet of him did Suyu slowly raise his dark eyes. Diabolic sword. A black light flashed. An invisible sword crossed the void and slashed into the head of the hunter on the left. A shrill scream reverberated through the forest. The hunter hugged his head and screamed in pain. Whoosh! Taking advantage of the opportunity, Suyu took large strides, his figure as fast as a torrent, leaving behind a series of afterimages as he chased after the hunter. Heavenly finger! Suyu raised his finger high, his body blending with nature as he slashed down. Creak! The hunter on the left lost his will to defend himself as he was in intense pain from his soul. A bloody groove was cut open on his chest. With a pathetic groan, the hunter's chest burst open and he died. The pupils of the remaining hunter on the right shrank, his heart thumping wildly. Clenching his teeth, he turned around and fled. He alone could not kill the other party, and there was a possibility that he would be killed. Humph! Suyu did not chase. Cloud Shadow was a low-level technique. Even though he had cultivated it to the top class, it could only increase his speed to level 4 peak. He could not catch up to the hunter. Most importantly, there were other people in the forest. He had to retreat quickly to avoid being surrounded by strong fighters. He turned around and searched the hunter's body, taking away the silver, dry food, and the animal skin coat he was wearing. Suyu and Senior Chin had escaped in a hurry and were penniless when the Duke's manor was in danger. After leaving the place, Suyu roughly ascertained the direction of the imperial capital. He then passed through the dense forest and traveled quickly. Entering the empire's capital and participating in the holy meet was his only chance for revenge. Half a day later, Guard Chun and the lucky hunter returned. Behind them was a masked young man. His face could not be seen clearly, but his figure was that of the level 6 peak ranker, Bai Chixiong. Senior, his silver, rations and clothes have all been taken away. Once he enters the city and disguises himself, it will be very difficult to catch him. Bodyguard Chen's expression was grave. Assassinating a holy seal-bearer was a heinous crime. As long as Suyu was not dead, he would not be able to rest easy. "You think you're so smart," Bai Chixiong sneered. How could he not be prepared when he was tracking the enemy in the forest? He led a hunting dog over and ordered it to sniff the corpse a few times to familiarize itself with the smell of the corpse's owner. Suyu, taking away the other party's clothes, was seeking his own death. The hound circled the area and immediately confirmed Suyu's direction. It was the direction of the imperial capital. Chase. He cannot have gotten far. With the speed of a level 5 peak ranker, Suyu would not be able to escape death. With the help of the hound, they chased after Suyu. One day later, the two of them had already traveled dozens of miles in the forest. Once Bai Chixiong caught up to Suyu, with Bai Chixiong's frightening abilities, Suyu would not be able to resist and would be killed on the spot. 2 days later, the two of them were still in pursuit. The barking of the hound became more and more obvious, indicating that the distance between them was getting closer. Senior, this lad's escape route is complicated. He changed directions a few times along the way. It seems that he has changed directions from the direction of the imperial capital to the depths of the Twilight Mountains. His escape route is completely random. After chasing for 2.5 days, bodyguard Chen voiced his doubts. Bai Qixiong was also a little confused. Su Yu knew that he was being chased and should have gone to a place with many people. With so many people around, Bai Qixiong would not dare to act rashly. At the moment, Su Yu was escaping to a desolate forest, a place with few people. It seemed like he was seeking his own death. Could it be that he wants to hide in the deep forest? Bai Qixiong was secretly suspicious. Finally, half a day later, the hounds stopped and charged into a huge cave, barking crazily. Bai Qixiong and bodyguard Chen were elated. After 2.5 days of pursuit, they had finally caught up to him. Roar! A low roar came from the cave. Roar! A tall black shadow fiercely charged out of the cave, pouncing toward the group. Looking at it, it was a giant black bear, as tall as a human. Humph! You are asking for death. Bodyguard Chen swung the long knife at his waist, slicing off the black bear's head. Thump! The black bear's body fell to the ground. Bai Qixiong stared at the belly of the black bear, his eyes cold. Cunning lad! Bodyguard Chen's pupils dilated, his heart sinking. No wonder. He is cunning. The black bear's belly was tied with an animal skin coat. It was from the dead assassin's body. They all thought that Su Yu had taken the clothes after taking the silver and rations to change into a bright red robe. This would make it easier for him to hide in the forest or disguise himself. But who could have expected this lad to be so cunning? He had purposely taken the animal skin coat and tied it under the belly of the black bear, guessing that they would use the scent of the hound to track him. The black bear had been provoked and escaped into the depths of the mountain range. As expected, he had led them in the opposite direction. It could be said that from the very beginning, this child had planned out a plan and was prepared for it. We were tricked by a lad. Bai Qixiong was furious, turning around to leave. Bodyguard Chen followed closely behind, anxious and fearful. Elder, what should we do? We have already lost track of him. Where could they find him in the vast forest? Bai Qixiong's gaze was cold, looking around. Finally, he looked in the direction of the imperial capital. Since he led us into the depths of the mountain range, we can chase in the opposite direction. In the opposite direction, it was the imperial capital. Bodyguard Chen agreed with him. 7 days later, the two of them stopped at a beach with a stream. A cold bonfire that had been extinguished for a long time lay quietly beside the stream. Numerous fish bones were scattered around. The bonfire was extinguished a day ago. This place is deserted and hunters would not come here. The possibility of Su Yu being the culprit is high. Bodyguard Chen pinched a piece of wood with his finger, sniffing it with the tip of his nose. Bai Qixiong's gaze was cold. All right. With our speed, we can catch up in half a day. Bodyguard Chen hesitated. Elder, if I remember correctly, we will reach the imperial capital after climbing over the mountain in front of us. If we cannot stop him, it will be difficult for us to strike again. There were many people in the imperial capital. Even if they were to strike in the dead of night, there was a high chance that they would be exposed. Chase. Feeling that time was tight, Bai Qixiong creased his brows and chased after Su Yu. Su Yu was exhausted. He had been on the run for 10 consecutive days. Apart from eating and drinking, he had been on the run the rest of the time. He only replenished his energy when he ate. Now, he was physically weak and exhausted. But thinking about the assassin chasing after him, Su Yu did not dare relax. He climbed to the peak of a mountain with much difficulty. Looking up, he saw dense forests and vast plains. It was like a painting. Rivers flowed across the land, lush greenery, and a cool breeze blew past. In the distant horizon, a majestic city was vaguely visible in the mist like a giant monster that could prop up the heavens. The imperial capital. Su Yu was pleasantly surprised. He had been walking in the direction of the imperial capital. After 10 days, he had finally arrived. He had to thank the fact that the Xianyu prefecture was adjacent to the imperial capital. Otherwise, with the vastness of the Xianyu prefecture, which was the size of the entire China continent, Su Yu would have needed a few months to traverse the entire Xianyu prefecture. His destination was in front. Su Yu relaxed. A wave of drowsiness swept over him. He was too tired, so tired that he could fall asleep at any moment. He pinched his thigh. The pain caused Su Yu to wake up a little. Before descending the mountain, Su Yu hid out of habit and looked back to observe the situation of his pursuers. He was just casually looking around, but when he turned his eyes, he saw his heart beating wildly. Bodyguard Chen and a masked youth were hurriedly chasing after him. Even though they were 2 miles away, to Su Yu's eyes, it was as if they were right in front of him. Even though Bai Qixiong was masked, Su Yu could still recognize him even if he turned to dust. Not good. 2 miles was not far, but it was not close either. They would catch up in a few minutes. Without any hesitation, Su Yu rushed down the mountain and headed toward the plains. On the way down, he used his eyes to scan the plains to see if there were any places to hide. Suddenly, he noticed a group of people setting up camp by the riverside. There were dozens of them, divided into 7 or 8 tents. Su Yu's eyes lit up and he quickly ran down the mountain. 2 minutes later, Su Yu looked back and saw Bai Qixiong and bodyguard Chen climbing up the mountain. He could not wait any longer. Before he was discovered, Su Yu chose the tent closest to the riverside and snuck into the tent. At that moment, Bai Qixiong and bodyguard Chen climbed up the mountain. Their eyesight was not as good as Su Yu's, and they did not notice the person they were looking for hiding in the tent. Su Yu looked through the gap in the tent and observed the expressions of the 2 people 2 miles away. He heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that there were no abnormalities. Exhausted, Su Yu sat on the ground and started to observe the tent carefully. Even though the tent was set up temporarily and was crude, the bedsheets were either pink or red. A faint fragrance surrounded the tent. It was like a lady's bedroom. "I will disturb you for a while. I will leave once Bai Qixiong and his people are far away." There were many people here, and Su Yu believed that Bai Qixiong would not dare to do anything rash. If news were to leak out, no one in the world could save him. After fleeing for so many days, he could finally take a breather. He could no longer suppress his exhaustion. In a daze, Su Yu climbed onto the embroidered bed and burrowed into the bedding. His head was heavy and he felt drowsy. Outside the tent, there was a graceful, elegant, and refined woman. She was untainted by even a speck of dust. Her eyes were clear like water, and she was elegant and refined. She did not look like a beauty from the mortal world, but like a fairy from a painting. Her snow-white face was tranquil, but her clear eyes were filled with worry. Are you still worried about Qin Xianer and Su Yu?" Xia Linxian sighed. He could not bear to see his daughter languish. Within 10 days, news of what had happened in the Xianyu prefecture had spread throughout the 13 prefectures of the empire. The Duke of Xianyu had been captured, and his daughter and son-in-law had escaped. Su Yu was a holy seal-bearer, and the empire did not dare to pursue him. However, Qin Xianer was wanted by the empire, and her fate was unknown. Xia Jingyu and Qin Xianer had been best friends since they were young, and they were as close as sisters. Now, Xia Jingyu had lost both her best friend and her best friend. How could she not be worried? Xia Jingyu looked back and forced a smile. The Duke of Xianyu had a premonition, and had arranged for an expert to bring them away. They should be fine. Do not worry. Xia Linxian comforted her. No news is the best news. Maybe they have already left the Fenglin Empire, far away from home. Far away from home? Xia Jingyu was both relieved and sad. Her heart was empty, and her eyes were misty. In this lifetime, she might not be able to see Xianer and Su Yu again. Were they safe and sound now that they were wandering in a foreign land? Xia Jingyu hid the tears in her eyes. Father, I will go back to my room to rest. Xia Linxian tenderly said, Yes, it is late. Rest well, and you can enter the imperial capital tomorrow. Yes. Xia Jingyu lowered her head and entered the room, feeling depressed. She walked to the side of the bed, and from the corner of her eye, she noticed that there was something wrong with the bed. Chapter 45. Xia Jingyu was angry and embarrassed. She lifted the blanket, revealing a haggard body in tattered clothes, looking like a beggar. But when that face appeared in her vision, Xia Jingyu's eyes never left it. Shock and disbelief filled her eyes. Xia Jingyu felt like time and space were in disarray. Didn't Su Yu escape the Fenglin Empire? Why would he be outside the imperial city, on my bed? After being stunned for a long time, Xia Jingyu walked closer and confirmed that she was not dreaming. Su Yu was still wearing the same groom outfit he had worn 10 days ago. It's him. It's really him. Xia Jingyu's breathing quickened. She could not believe her eyes. She could not suppress the joy in her heart. Her haggard face suddenly brightened. She turned to walk out. Father, Su Yu, whoosh. Su Yu was half asleep. Xia Jingyu's approach caused him to wake up from his dreams. Even though his mind was heavy, he could still think. He subconsciously grabbed Xia Jingyu's wrist, his lips trembling. Don't, it's dangerous. I'm being chased. After a few words, Su Yu fell back into a deep sleep. Xia Jingyu was shocked. Su Yu was already a holy seal-bearer. Who would dare to kill him? She quickly realized what Su Yu was trying to say. Someone wanted to kill him. If his existence was exposed, the person chasing him might kill them as well. If it was in the Xianyu prefecture, Xia Jingyu would not be so worried. Her father was the legend of the Xianyu prefecture. But there were many experts near the imperial city. It was hard to predict. She could not let anyone discover Su Yu's existence. Once the news was leaked, it would be a disaster. Xia Linxian had not gone far. Hearing his daughter's strange behavior, he hurried over. What happened? Xia Jingyu hurriedly covered up. Oh, nothing. I was a little absent-minded. Father, please don't come in. I have already taken off my clothes. Xia Linxian, who was about to open the tent, retracted his hand and sighed. It's good that you are fine. Su Yu is a good person. Don't think too much about it. I know, Father. Xia Jingyu's heart was beating rapidly. Her face was flushed red. Hearing her father's footsteps getting further away, she heaved a sigh of relief. Looking back at Su Yu's sleeping face, Xia Jingyu felt an indescribable joy. Her clear eyes were misty as she muttered, I thought you were dead. I did not expect to see you again. A teardrop silently slid down. As Xia Jingyu looked at Su Yu calmly, her heart became peaceful, warm, and peaceful. It was just like that day, under the pear blossoms and moonlight, when Su Yu held her hand and brought her into the comprehension of the holy decree. They galloped through the boundless nature, and she snuggled into his firm embrace. An unforgettable feeling was engraved in his heart. Even if time were to pass and Xia Jingyu forgot about heaven and earth, she would never forget the full moon that night, the pear blossoms in the courtyard that night, and the unemotional embrace that night. It was only after a long while that Xia Jingyu realized that she had to prepare food and water for Su Yu. It was only when she stood up that she realized that Su Yu was still holding her wrist tightly. Xia Jingyu pursed her lips and smiled gently. She squatted at the edge of the bed and quietly waited by his side. Outside the tent, Bai Qixiong and bodyguard Chen looked serious. How could there be such a coincidence? The Martial Arts Training Institute of the Xianyu Prefecture is escorting the 10 demon students of the institute into the imperial capital to participate in the holy test. In the 13 prefectures, every martial arts training institute had the authority to send 10 of their strongest martial artists to the imperial capital to participate in the holy meet. In other words, there were a total of 10 holy seal bearers in this group of people. Elder, it is not difficult to find out if Su Yu is there. The difficult part is, if Su Yu is really there, how should we deal with him? Bodyguard Chen was experienced and ruthless. If he is not there, this matter can be easily settled. We can just apologize. With our statuses, the Martial Arts Training Institute might not make things difficult for us. The problem is, if Su Yu is really there, what should we do? Once we make a move, it would be impossible to not attract their attention, especially Xia Linxuan's attention. But if we do not make a move, Su Yu will follow them into the imperial capital tomorrow, making it difficult for us to make a move. Bai Qixiong muttered to himself for a moment, his gaze cold. Is there a need to ask? Of course we will kill all of them. Killing a holy seal bearer is the same as killing a group of them. With the jade pendant given by the first prince, it is enough to kill all of them, not a single one of them will be spared. Bodyguard Chen gasped. What a cruel and merciless bodyguard of the first prince. He and Bai Qixiong were in the same boat. Naturally, they would follow his orders. After some time, Bai Qixiong took off his mask, revealing his true identity. He appeared outside the tent with Bodyguard Chen. The appearance of two experts at level 6 and level 5 of the martial path caused a commotion. Xia Linxian and Yi Xian immediately arrived. Xia Linxian creased his brows. Bodyguard Chen was a nobody, and he might not recognize him. But Bai Qixiong was the one who captured the Duke of Xianyu. His abilities were at level 6 peak of the martial path. How could he not recognize him? Bai Qixiong, what is your intention in barging into my tent? Could it be that I am plotting a rebellion? Xia Linxian was extremely angry at the Duke of Xianyu's predicament. The Duke of Xianyu had been loyal to the Emperor and loved his people. He had a good reputation. He did not expect to be embroiled in a power struggle for the throne. Now, the first prince's lackey had appeared outside the tent. How could he have a good attitude? Bai Qixiong said coldly, I am under orders to capture the criminal, Princess Xianyu. We have received a secret report that your training institute has been harboring her. I want to search the institute. Housemaster Xia, please step aside. Qin Xianer was already a wanted criminal in the Fenglin Empire. Anyone harboring her would be punished by the Empire, even Xia Linxian. Bai Qixiong, have you forgotten the origins of the Martial Arts Training Institute? Xia Linxuan's eyes gradually turned cold. The Martial Arts Training Institute was, in essence, a branch of the sanctuary. In theory, it was not under the jurisdiction of the royal family. Bai Qixiong silently took out a jade pendant. It contained an attack at the peak of level 7 of the martial path. Xia Linxuan's pupils shrank. He was secretly shocked. If the attack was released, everyone present, including him, could be killed instantly. Housemaster Xia, this is strange, Yi Xian whispered. Bai Qixiong knows that we are a branch of the sanctuary, but still dares to threaten us. I think he really has the intention to kill us all. Xia Linxian secretly nodded. He also felt that something was not right. Bai Qixiong was too daring. After pondering for a while, he coldly said, Bai Qixiong, I hope you understand what you are doing. In the end, Xia Linxian chose to compromise. He did not care if he died. However, there were 10 demon students in the tent. They could not die in vain. Xia Linxian had a clear conscience. He had never hidden Qin Xianer and was naturally not afraid of being searched. Bai Qixiong and Bodyguard Chen worked together to check the tents one by one. One by one, they did not miss anything. Until they reached the last tent. The two of them had a gloomy expression. Could it be that Su Yu did not sneak in? Could he have changed directions at the last minute and escaped into another area? Bai Qixiong was about to open the tent when Xia Linxian extended his hand to stop him. This is my daughter's tent. She is already asleep. You are not allowed to enter. Bodyguard Chen's eyes narrowed. Bai Qixiong was suddenly on guard. Could it be that Su Yu was in the tent? Bai Qixiong secretly clenched the jade pendant in his robes. He was prepared to crush it and kill everyone present along with Su Yu. Xia Jingyu, who had heard the commotion outside, felt her heart thumping wildly. Were the people searching for Suyu here? Even her father could not stop them. It was obvious how terrifying they were. No. They could not allow anyone to discover Suyu's presence. If not, not only would Suyu be in danger, they would also be in danger. But the tent was simple and crude. It was clear that there was no place to hide anyone. Hearing the hurried footsteps approaching, Xia Jingyu became anxious. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something. Her face turned red, like a red lotus after the rain, elegant and refined. Biting her lips, her hands trembled as she took off her robe. Her dark green robe slid down her smooth skin. A suffocating and delicate body appeared naturally. Her skin was as white as jade and exquisite in all the right places. She was the embodiment of the world's most beautiful fragrance. She was as beautiful as a fairy from the 9 heavens, causing one to be intoxicated. Her clear eyes were misty. Xia Jingyu lifted the blanket and lay down. To prevent Suyu from being discovered, she could only hug Suyu and lay down on her side. He covered himself with the blanket and looked around. There was only a sleeping fairy under the blanket. Whoosh! At that moment Bai Qixiong tensed up. He lifted the tent and saw the back of a lady sleeping on her side. From the occasional exposed snow-white shoulder, it could be seen that she was sleeping naked. Disappointment overflowed from his eyes. But a thought flashed through his mind. Is it possible that Suyu is on the bed? But the thought disappeared in a flash. Sleeping with a naked man would ruin her innocence for the rest of her life. Even though Xia Jingyu and Suyu were familiar with each other, it was not to the extent of abandoning her innocence. Bodyguard Chen looked over, his eyes flashing as he shook his head. The Martial Arts Training Institute did not hide Suyu. It seemed like the possibility of him changing his direction was high. The two of them looked at each other. Under Xia Linxuan's furious gaze, they retreated. Xia Linxian and Yi Xian heaved a sigh of relief. When they were inspecting Xia Jingyu's tent, Bai Qixiong's killing intent was clearly directed at all of them. At that moment, they were afraid of discovering something. The commotion outside the tent finally caused Suyu, who was in a deep sleep, to wake up. As he regained consciousness, he felt a warm, soft, and smooth sensation on his face. He opened his eyes in a daze. A pair of snow-white breasts appeared clearly in front of him. 2 red cherries were at the side of his mouth. Suyu was shocked, and he quickly shifted his gaze upward. A face as beautiful as a fairy's was clearly visible. It was so familiar, so beautiful, and so deeply engraved in his heart. But the fairy's clear eyes were dripping with tears. The tears flowed down her cheeks, soaking the pillow. Xia! Senior Xia! Suyu was stunned, as if he was in a dream. He had clearly been escaping, and had fainted in a tent. Why was it that when he woke up, all he saw was a naked Xia Jingyu crying and hugging him? Hearing the voice, Xia Jingyu realized that Suyu was awake. She hurriedly covered her chest. Her cheeks were red, like the morning sun reflecting off the snow. It was beautiful beyond words. You are not allowed to look. Xia Jingyu sobbed softly. Her crying face was like a pear blossom in the rain. Suyu hurriedly closed his eyes and turned his body, no longer looking. He could hear the rustling sound of Xia Jingyu putting on her clothes. I'm done. Xia Jingyu put on her clothes. Her hair was a little messy. Her tears had disappeared, but the remaining tear stains were shocking. Senior Xia, what happened? Why did you? Suyu was still very tired. He resisted the urge to sleep and asked uneasily. Xia Jingyu's eyes were calm. She gently shook her head. Bai Qixiong was here. In order to ensure your safety, it was just a temporary measure. You do not have to take it to heart. Suyu was a smooth talker. Xia Jingyu had only said a few words, but he already understood the entire situation. Thump, thump, Suyu's heart trembled. He looked at Xia Jingyu absent-mindedly. Do not have to take it to heart? How could he not take it to heart? Xia Jingyu, a virgin, had destroyed her own chastity in order to protect him. She had hugged him naked on the bed. To a woman, what did this mean? Her rolling tears said it all. The Chernue continent had strict etiquette. Men and women were not allowed to touch each other. This was not something that Earth could compare to. The Duke of Xianyu, in order to capture Su Yu, who had tainted his daughter's chastity, did not hesitate to search the entire city. The people of this world valued chastity. Moreover, Xia Jingyu was a woman with a noble heart. Chapter 46. Once the demon students of the Martial Arts Training Institute found out that Su Yu had been hiding, Xia Jingyu's reputation would be destroyed. Xia Jingyu, who was as noble as she was, had committed suicide to prevent Fang Qingzhou from touching her. But now, she had willingly embraced Su Yu, destroying her own chastity. Senior Xia. Su Yu, who was usually calm and collected, felt his mind go blank. In his previous life, if he had a misunderstanding with another woman, he could use sweet words to make the other party happy and take the opportunity to escape. But he could not do that for Xia Jingyu. After all, Xia Jingyu was protecting him. If not for his fiancée, Qin Xianer, Su Yu could be thick-skinned and take responsibility for Xia Jingyu. But Qin Xianer was his fiancée. She had already lost her father. She could not lose her only fiancé. Xia Jingyu wiped away her tears, wiping her swollen eyes. Her snow-white skin was still visible, like an autumn lotus in a cold pond. She was both beautiful and sad. Don't take it to heart, these are just temporary measures, Xia Jingyu repeated, trying hard not to think about the future. At that moment, footsteps could be heard from outside. Can I come in? Xia Jingyu's heart jumped. She looked at Su Yu with a complicated expression, sighing helplessly. Yes, I am awake. She had to face what she had to face. Su Yu's presence in the tent could not be hidden. Xia Linxian was worried that his daughter would be frightened and hurried in. But what entered his eyes was a haggard man, looking like a beggar, sitting on his daughter's bed. As a father, he felt as though he had been struck by lightning. Looking at the man, he saw that it was a youth, and he looked very familiar. Su Yu. Xia Linxian was shocked once again. Wasn't he rescued by Senior Qin and sent to the Fenglin Empire? Why was he here? But there was another question that made him furious. If his daughter had slept naked, didn't that mean that Su Yu was in the same bed as her? His daughter was noble, and would not do anything that would bring shame to the family. Xia Linxian was certain of this. Without a doubt, his daughter had pretended to sleep in order to protect Su Yu. At that time, Su Yu was in the same bed as her. Xia Linxian felt as though he had been struck by lightning. His daughter's innocence. Yi Xian and a few other monstrous students rushed over upon hearing the commotion. When they saw the scene in the tent, they were all dumbstruck. Xia Jingyu. Just now, she was naked with Su Yu? The whole place was dead silent. Xia Jingyu's jade-like face blushed as she felt the many peculiar gazes on her. The sunset glow that had just faded returned to her cheek. She, who had a noble and pure temperament, could not stand their strange gazes. Get out of here! Xia Linxian stared blankly for a long time. His face was as gloomy as water, like a volcano that was about to erupt. Yi Xian immediately led the students away. As shrewd as he was, he cautiously reminded them that the news of Su Yu being the battalion commander could not be spread. Otherwise, once Bai Qixiong noticed and crushed the jade pendant, all of them would be buried with him. However, the scene of Su Yu and Xia Jingyu's naked bodies, facing each other, couldn't be kept a secret for long. Xia Linxuan's cold eyes were filled with towering flames of anger. He looked at his daughter, his heart aching, but also filled with anger and indignation. Was there a need to make such a huge sacrifice for Su Yu, who they had only known for a short time? Now, everyone knew that his daughter had lost her chastity to Su Yu. Even though things had not progressed to that stage, her clean reputation had been destroyed. Who would dare to have sex with a woman who had slept with another man, and was even naked in bed with him? When he finally looked at Su Yu, Xia Linxuan's chest was burning with rage. Luckily, even though he was angry, he understood that this matter could not be completely blamed on Su Yu. If he had not been forced to do so, Su Yu would not have escaped into their tent. Suppressing his anger, Xia Linxian said in a low voice, "Su Yu, tell me, how do you plan to resolve this?" Su Yu took a deep breath, bowing apologetically. "I will let Housemaster Xia deal with me." "All right." Xia Linxian thought for a moment, not allowing Su Yu to argue. "There is only one way to preserve my daughter's clean reputation. That is for you to marry her." Rumble. Xia Jingyu felt as if she had been struck by lightning, her heart thumping wildly. Her face was red as she objected, "Father, you cannot." She had not known Su Yu for long and did not have many feelings for him. She only had a good impression of him. Xia Jingyu was not mentally prepared to marry him. Do you still have a choice? Let Su Yu speak for himself." Xia Linxian glared at his daughter, secretly hating her for not living up to his expectations. If he did not take this opportunity to force Su Yu to marry him, would his daughter still have the face to marry someone else in the future? Of course, with his daughter's exceptional beauty, there were many who coveted her. It would not be difficult for her to marry someone else. However, marrying someone of equal status would be a stain on Xia Jingyu's reputation. Su Yu's lips moved, a bitter expression spreading across his face. He said apologetically, "Housemaster Xia, forgive me for not being able to agree. Xiener is my fiancée, I cannot let her down." Xia Jingyu's anxious heart relaxed. She had been worried that she would marry Su Yu without even realizing it. But for some reason, after being rejected, she did not feel as relaxed as she had imagined. Instead, she felt a little disappointed. He had actually rejected her. Xia Linxian was furious. He clenched his teeth, enunciating each word slowly. "My daughter's reputation has been ruined because of you. Yet you do not wish to marry her. Let me ask you, what do you intend to do with my daughter?" Su Yu could not explain himself. He was stunned for a long time before bowing. He sincerely said, "Housemaster Xia, Senior Xia, please give me some time. After the holy meet, I will settle my marriage with Xiener. I will then give you an explanation." Xia Linxian was furious. This matter could not be dragged on. If they left this place and Su Yu did not acknowledge the marriage, what could he do? In the end, Xia Jingyu's heart softened. She could not bear to force Su Yu. She advised, "Father, let him settle his marriage with Xiener first." Xia Linxian was furious. He had fought for his daughter, but she had turned against him. "Su Yu, you better remember this. This matter is not over." Xia Linxian flicked his sleeves and left. Xia Linxian could not understand. The Duke of Xianyu had lost his power, and it was almost impossible for him to make a name for himself. Xia Linxian was also a level 7 martial artist. He could help Su Yu on his future path of cultivation. Why was Su Yu still so fixated on Qin Xiener? After her father left, Xia Jingyu said softly, "Don't take father's words to heart. I do not need you to take responsibility for me. Just take good care of Xiener." Su Yu was moved. He said guiltily, "I am indebted to the Duke. Before he died, he asked me to take care of Xiener. Now that he is in trouble, I cannot abandon Xiener. After everything is settled, I will give you an explanation." She heard that Su Yu's difficulties stemmed from the word gratitude. The disappointment in her heart eased. She also sympathized with him. Everyone in the world thought that Su Yu would soar to the top. Who would have thought that he would implicate the innocent and end up in such dire straits? Xia Jingyu softly said, "Just call me Jingyu. Can you tell me how Xiener is doing?" Su Yu nodded. 2 hours later, Xia Jingyu was both relieved and worried. She was relieved that Qin Xiener was safe and sound. She had already escaped to the faraway Fenghuang Empire. Fenghuang Empire was no weaker than the Fenglin Empire. The power of the Fenglin Empire would not be able to threaten Xiener. She was worried that Su Yu would insist on participating in the holy meet in order to repay the Duke's kindness. Not only was his chance of survival slim, he might even be a sheep in a tiger's den. The imperial capital was the first prince's base. Once the holy meet ended, the holy seal between Su Yu's brows would disappear. At that time, the first prince would have no qualms about dealing with Su Yu. With the help of all the experts in the imperial capital, even if Su Yu broke through to level 9, he would still die. It could be said that Su Yu was fighting with his life on the line. If he could not get first place, he would die. Su Yu also received a lot of information. It turned out that the Duke of Xianyu had not died when he was saved by the third prince. He had only lost an arm. This news made Su Yu extremely happy. However, another piece of news made him feel like he had fallen into an ice cellar. Due to the fact that the second prince had been killed, the Duke of Xianyu's crimes had been determined. He would be executed in 10 days. According to his calculations, the holy meet would end in 10 days. Su Yu did not have any extra time. This made Su Yu even more determined to get first place in the holy meet. He had to get first place. He could not let the Duke of Xianyu die. For the next few days I will spar with you. I hope that it will help you improve your abilities. If not, with your current abilities, the chances of you entering the top 30 are slim, and the chances of getting first place are even slimmer. Xia Jingyu was touched by Su Yu's determination and gratitude. She decided to help him with all her might. Su Yu lightly shook his head. No! Why? Xia Jingyu bit her lips. Su Yu calmly said, "The first prince wants to get rid of me. After entering the imperial capital, he might send assassins to assassinate me. Once I am exposed among your team, he might kill all of you in order to hide the truth. I cannot implicate all of you," Su Yu slowly said. Bai Qixiong's actions proved that Su Yu's words were not exaggerated. Xia Jingyu knew this was the case, but she could not help but say, "Then where will you go? If we can't protect you, who else can?" Su Yu was just a small town boy. The most powerful person he knew was the Duke of Xianyu. Xia Jingyu could not think of anyone else Su Yu knew. There is one person. Su Yu's eyes flashed. The next morning, the Martial Arts Training Institute set off as if nothing had happened. Su Yu disguised himself as a servant and blended in with the crowd. The holy seal between his eyebrows was secretly covered. Under Xia Linshuan's instructions, the demon students pretended not to know and slowly entered the imperial capital. Far away from the team, Bai Qixiong and bodyguard Chen secretly watched for a long time. Bodyguard Chen slowly shook his head. "Looks like he is really not here. We have been watching for a night in vain." Bai Qixiong was a little angry. "Mn that cunning kid, we really let him escape. We will immediately return to report." After entering the imperial capital, Su Yu stared at Xia Jingyu with a complicated expression. Xia Jingyu's snow-like eyes trembled. She felt a sense of loss. Her heart was filled with bitterness. In order to prevent others from noticing, they did not say goodbye, only sending each other off with their eyes. Perhaps this farewell would be forever. If Su Yu could not fight for the Holy Crown, he would not be able to escape death. Taking advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention, Su Yu entered the alley and disappeared. Xia Jingyu's shoulders trembled, her heart filled with grief. Why did you do this?" As a strong martial artist of level 7, how could Xia Linxian not notice Su Yu's departure? He lightly patted his daughter's shoulder and lightly sighed. "Obviously, you could have forced him to stay. With his personality, if you threatened him with death, he would definitely compromise." Chapter 47. Among the 10 demon students who were advancing, the one leading the group was an 18-year-old youth. His face was resolute and cold, and his muscles were filled with explosive power. As if sensing something, he looked back and caught sight of Su Yu's disappearing figure. "Shaoli, is he the Su Yu who was chased away?" The resolute youth's eyes were filled with anger. The silver-haired Shaoli felt the anger of the resolute youth and knew the reason. It was his dream lover, Xia Jingyu, who had sacrificed her innocence for Su Yu. The silver-haired Shaoli had been defeated by Su Yu and could not help but add fuel to the fire. It's him. He looks down on everyone after comprehending the holy decree. Brother Zheng, you comprehended the holy decree much earlier than he did. Who does Su Yu think he is? He's just a small fry who managed to become a silver trash. He better not meet me again. The resolute youth clenched his fists, his gaze fixed on Xia Jingyu's fairy-like figure. He could not help but be infatuated with her. The reason why the arrogant Shaoli was so respectful behind him was he was the #1 demon of the Xianyu Prefecture Martial Arts Training Institute, Zheng Yilin. He was the terrifying demon who had comprehended the holy decree in the Martial Arts Training Institute. His abilities far surpassed the other demon students, suppressing his peers and invincible in the Martial Arts Training Institute. This time, he was one of the demon students with the highest hopes of obtaining the Holy Crown. Shaoli had to admit that Su Yu was indeed strong, but in front of Zheng Yilin, he could not withstand a single blow. The third prince was born of a concubine. It was rumored that the king had a son and was later brought back to the palace. Unfortunately, the third prince did not have any trusted aides in the palace. Even though he was courteous and respected among the people, he could not compete with his two brothers for the throne. Even the only person who supported him openly, Duke Jiuchuan, had his entire family executed by his two brothers on charges of conspiracy. Now, there were only a few who dared to stand with the third prince. Almost all of the civil and military officials, excluding the neutral faction, stood with the first prince. Now, after the incident with the Duke of Xianyu, the neutral faction had also begun to side with the first prince. Once the king passed away, the first prince would naturally become the new king of the Fenglin Empire and control the huge empire. The third prince had no intention of fighting for the throne. Therefore, he lived in seclusion to show that he was indifferent to worldly affairs. He cultivated in the prince's palace all year round and stood aloof from worldly affairs. On this day, a young man stood quietly outside the door. He wore a conical bamboo hat and a straw raincoat. Only a peerless, fairy-like face could be seen. "Who are you?" The leader of the guards was a level 4 expert, so he asked cautiously. The youth's eyes were as deep as the starry sky, and there was a dazzling light of wisdom. "The person that the third prince wants to see." He swiped his finger across his forehead, and the bamboo hat rose slightly. A holy gate's imprint flashed past. The guard leader's eyes flickered as he shouted in a deep voice, "Wait here." After a cup of tea's time, a purple-robed old man came out with an indifferent expression and looked Su Yu up and down. His gaze was sharp and powerful, able to see through even the smallest details. Goti nodded his chin lightly and turned to return to the mansion. Without turning his head, he said, "Follow me in." The purple-robed elder brought Su Yu deep into the prince's mansion. Birds chirped and flowers bloomed. It was quiet and peaceful, and there was a pleasant fragrance everywhere. A magnificent pavilion stood in the middle of the water. In the pavilion, a young man in plain clothes, his long hair fluttering in the wind, was quietly reading an ancient book. He had a scholarly temperament, and his expression was tranquil. It was the third prince, who was indifferent to fame and fortune. "Third prince, the person has been brought here." The purple-robed elder stood respectfully. The third prince looked up. His eyes looked calm, but they were as deep as the ocean, occasionally flashing with the glow of wisdom. "Su Yu, long time no see." The plain-clothed young man was the world-famous third prince. He smiled casually, but it was like a spring breeze. Su Yu took off his conical bamboo hat, his eyes as calm as water. "Third prince, I did not expect you to come to my mansion." The third prince had a smile on his face as he quietly looked at Su Yu. Su Yu smiled back. I also did not expect you to see me so easily. Slowly shaking his head, the third prince's smile was normal, but his tone gradually became cold. You are wrong. I let you in so that you cannot escape. Do it. The third prince's expression changed. After the low shout, 3 figures that had been hidden for a long time rushed out of the pool surrounding the pavilion. 2 of them were level 5 upper tier, and 1 of them was level 5 peak. The 3 of them held a diamond net in their hands and suddenly attacked. At such a close distance, Suyu had no chance of dodging. Swoosh! The giant net covered the sky, covering all the gaps in the surroundings. Even Suyu's escape route was cut off. Suyu was immediately covered by the net. The 3 strong level 5 martial artists immediately attacked, subduing Suyu and making him unable to move. Suyu could not resist and coldly said, "Third Prince, what is the meaning of this?" The third prince's expression was ice-cold. "You killed my brother, you are a sinner of the royal family. How can I not kill you since you came here voluntarily? Take him away." Suyu walked right into the net and was escorted to the third prince's backyard. The third prince angrily went to interrogate Suyu personally. The purple-robed housekeeper had a strange look in his eyes as he bowed and retreated. After being escorted to the backyard, the level 5 peak leader could not help but curl his lips in disdain. "I heard that the son-in-law of the Duke of Xianyu is shockingly talented and has comprehended the holy decree. I did not expect him to be captured so easily. He does not live up to his reputation." However, an indifferent laugh could be heard. "Lin Xiao, you are wrong. He is shockingly talented and not just in name. He deliberately allowed himself to be captured by you just now." Lin Xiao, the level 5 peak leader, was shocked. Deliberately allowed himself to be captured? As if responding to the indifferent laugh behind him, Suyu let out a low roar. Purple Star Thunderbolt. Rumble. The purple arc of thunder contained a destructive aura. The air was filled with the smell of burning. As he swung his fists, it sounded like thunder. The golden steel net could not withstand the destruction of lightning. Creak, the steel net broke. Suyu's body shook off the 2 hands on his shoulders and easily escaped from the steel net. Lin Xiao was shocked. How hard was the golden steel net? Anyone below level 5 would not be able to retaliate if trapped. Not good. Quickly capture him. Lin Xiao angrily attacked. "Stop." A calm order came from behind him. Lin Xiao did not understand and turned around. Turning back, Suyu's face was calm. He stared at the person behind them and laughed. "It looks like I was right. I am indeed the person the third prince wanted to see." The third prince had a faint smile on his face. It was as if the person who had been covered in ice was not him, but someone else. The third prince smiled gently like a spring breeze. A look of surprise appeared on his face. "Brother Su, how did you see that I was just putting on a show and pretending to capture you?" Suyu's eyes were deep. "Because the third prince needs me. Therefore, capturing me must be an act for someone to see. I'm guessing it should be your housekeeper, the purple-robed elder?" The third prince's pupils shrank. "That day at the Duke of Xianyu's palace, I felt that you were different from the rest, with hidden wisdom. Now it seems that I am right. My purple-robed housekeeper has already been secretly bribed by the first prince to monitor my movements. If he knows that I've happily accepted you, I'm afraid that my days will be very difficult. Therefore, I've offended you just now. Brother Su, please don't take it to heart." Suyu was full of admiration. That day, he had deduced that the third prince was a scheming and shrewd person. Now, it seemed that he was right. He knew that the purple-robed housekeeper had been bribed by the first prince to secretly monitor him, but he pretended not to know. Instead, he took advantage of the situation and deliberately hid his strength to confuse the first prince. In reality, he was secretly accumulating his strength, waiting for the right moment to compete with the first prince. Lin Xiao could not believe that the third prince had told Suyu such a secret. Could it be that the third prince wanted to use this person? The group entered the secret chamber. Lin Xiao did not leave, protecting the third prince. He stared at Su Yu cautiously. Brother Su, you did not take the risk to find me just to reminisce, right? The third prince laughed gently. Su Yu took a sip of tea. Didn't I say that you needed me? I am here to help you. Help me with what? The third prince smiled. Su Yu's eyes shone with determination. Of course, to fight for the throne. Fight for the throne. Su Yu enunciated each word with a pause. His words were powerful and earth-shattering. The 4 words were earth-shattering. Lin Zhao's expression changed. A sliver of panic flashed in the depths of his eyes. He had a murderous look. Insolent thief, how dare you say such treasonous words? Kneel and surrender. Stop! The third prince shouted. His eyes gradually narrowed as he stared at Su Yu. I do not understand what Brother Su is saying. Su Yu laughed. You understand and I understand. Since ancient times, the path to imperial power was built on the bones of thousands. After the first prince ascends to the throne, you will be a thorn in his side. Sooner or later, you will be eliminated. I do not believe that someone as shrewd and scheming as you would not have taken precautions. The third prince stared at Su Yu for a long time before letting out a long laugh. Ha ha! Su Yu, this prince seems to have misjudged you. You're smarter than I thought. The Duke of Xianyu has really found an impressive son-in-law. After a moment, he gradually retracted his smile. The third prince laughed. You are right. I will not surrender. But how are you going to help me? If I wanted to, you would not be able to take even half a step out of the first prince's palace. Furthermore, you are going to deal with my powerful brother. Su Yu's eyes were filled with mystery. Below the Holy King, all imperial power is but an ant. The third prince's mind was racing. His smile gradually froze. You wish to participate in the holy meet, obtain first place, and ask for a promise from the Holy King? That's right, Su Yu said coldly. I swore that day that if I do not kill the first prince, I will never be human. I want to obtain first place in the holy meet. I have one request. That is, to kill the first prince. Su Yu could not suppress the hatred in his heart. Once he is dead, you will be the only prince left. If you are still unable to ascend to the throne, it means that your abilities are lacking. You might as well not be the monarch. The crowd was stunned. Su Yu was vainly trying to obtain first place in the holy meet? Hearing this, the third prince was silent for a moment. The light in his eyes dimmed. He was instantly disappointed. Su Yu's experience and insight into worldly affairs had made the third prince feel like he had met a confidant. But he could not help but be disappointed. Even though Su Yu was talented, he was too conceited. Arrogant people could not take setbacks and were not fit to be placed in an important position. All the demon geniuses of the empire were gathered here. Every one of them was an outstanding talent. No matter where they were in the empire, they would be famous geniuses. Even though Su Yu was not bad, he was far from being able to compete with them. Lin Xiao could not help but laugh in anger. Arrogant and ignorant. In the holy meet, even I cannot guarantee that I will enter the top 50. What right do you have to obtain the crown? Su Yu's expression was calm. He said coldly, the reason is simple. I am stronger than you. Chapter 48. You! Lin Xiao laughed in anger. Let me see how powerful the son-in-law of the Duke of Xianyu is. Shua Lin Zhao's body turned into a black shadow. Like a cheetah, he was agile and swift, full of explosive power. Mountain-crushing hammer. Lin Zhao's body moved like a shadow. He clenched his left and right fists, raised them high above his head and smashed them down. A layer of faint green luster surrounded the heavy hammer. It was as if the hammer had descended from the clouds of the 9 heavens, descending from the boundless depths of space. The faint green light followed the heavy hammer, leaving behind a series of afterimages. Woo-woo! The air whimpered incessantly. Whiffs of strong energy stirred the black hair hanging in front of Su Yu's forehead, revealing a pair of clear eyes that were as deep as the starry sky. Su Yu's figure moved like the wind. Just a moment ago, he was still sitting in the guest seat. The next moment, all that was left was an afterimage. Purple Star Thunderbolt. Ever since he recovered from his serious injuries, his cultivation had unknowingly broken through to the peak of level 4. Under the infusion of true Qi, the power of the Purple Star Thunderbolt soared exponentially. It was the same Purple Star Thunderbolt, but it had once found it difficult to defeat the peak of the 5th heaven. But now it was more than enough. Faint purple lightning flashed fiercely. The sizzling sound was like thunder. Bang bang bang. Su Yu faced it head-on. A hammer and a fist, exploding with a rumble, setting off a violent gale. The cold wind was unbridled and the Qi sea was flying. The momentum was astonishing. The two of them maintained their collision posture, neither of them retreating. Lin Zhao's expression changed drastically. He, who was at level 5 peak, was successfully blocked by Su Yu. The third prince's dim eyes suddenly lit up. That day at the Duke of Xianyu's manor, Su Yu was severely injured by the level 5 peak royal brother's fatal blow. How long had it been? Yet, he was able to fight to a draw with a single move. That's right. But you're still too weak. Lin Zhao restrained his shock. How could he admit defeat in front of the third prince? Earth-splitting 3 styles. Lin Zhao's aura suddenly changed. Earth-shattering 3 styles, a middle-ranked, top-notch cultivation technique. If the previous strike was like a heavy hammer falling from the sky, at this moment it was like a mountain falling from the starry sky, and it carried the power to shatter mountains and rivers. The dense green luster was like a flame that burned through the heavens. The terrifying fist was like a mountain, capable of shattering mountains and rivers for thousands of miles. At that moment, Su Yu's expression was as calm as still water, calm and unperturbed. Heavenly finger! In the face of such a powerful and oppressive attack, Su Yu raised his finger high. In an instant, his whole body was surrounded by nature, peaceful and harmonious. It was as if he had become a person in a painting, extraordinary and otherworldly. There was no gorgeous technique, no dazzling brilliance, no dazzling posture. What he had was merely an ordinary finger. However, this finger contained an indescribable profundity. That trajectory would cause one to sink into it, unable to extricate themselves. Qila. Rub, rub, rub. Lin Zhao felt an irresistible force of nature sweeping toward him. At the critical moment, he switched from offense to defense. A bone-piercing pain came from his arms. An invisible force forced him to retreat and hit the stone pillar behind him. Woo! Lin Zhao's expression changed as he tasted a mouthful of blood in his throat. He actually lost by a small margin. The third prince's eyes flickered with excitement, resulting in a brilliant glow. In just 10 days, he was already on par with a level 5 peak martial artist. Lin Zhao was unwilling to give up, and he attacked again. Forget it, you can't beat Su Yu. The third prince calmly waved his hand. Lin Zhao returned to the third prince's side unwillingly. He could feel his internal organs trembling, and he was rather dissatisfied. How is it, third prince? Do I have the right to participate in the holy meat? The third prince lifted his gaze and looked directly into Su Yu's eyes for the first time. Su Yu's deep eyes, his determination moved him. After muttering to himself for some time, the third prince seemed to have made up his mind, and he nodded his head. Fine. I will make an additional bet on you. Additional? Su Yu pondered. I will help you obtain the holy crown. If you succeed, you will help me obtain the empire. The third prince said. Su Yu regained his senses and nodded. Of course. Lin Zhao, immediately prepare the best training room for Mr. Su, the best medicinal herbs, the best teachers, and the best sparring partner. The third prince was extremely courageous. Since he had decided to help Su Yu, he would not hesitate to pay any price. In short, bring out the best resources in the prince's manor. If Suyu has anything he wants, bring it all to me. If the prince's manor does not have it, go to the market to buy it. If the market does not have it, send people to search the entire imperial city. Do you understand? Lin Xiao was shocked. The third prince wanted to place his hopes on Suyu? As a trusted aide, Lin Xiao understood the third prince's situation. If he could not become the monarch, he could only become a skeleton under the first prince's feet. Hence, he could understand why the third prince wanted to fight for a sliver of hope. What he could not understand was why the third prince wanted to place his hopes on Suyu, a youth whom he was not familiar with and whose abilities were not the best. After a few hours, Suyu immediately started to train in seclusion. Lin Xiao returned to the third prince's side to report. He could not hide his confusion. Master, why do you trust Suyu so much? Please forgive me for speaking the truth. Even though Suyu's abilities are above mine, it is impossible for him to obtain the crown in the holy meat. Master, aren't you being too hasty by placing your hopes on him? The third prince sighed. Who said I was placing my hopes on him? Lin Xiao did not understand. Then why did Master give him all the best resources? Such precious resources should be used to nurture a few more secret guards. The value would be far greater than spending it on Suyu. After all, spending it on him is akin to drawing water with a wicker basket. The third prince laughed. His face was filled with nostalgia. In my life, I have met countless people. I have friends all over the world. However, he is the only person that I feel like I can confide in. Lin Xiao understood. It turned out that the third prince and Suyu appreciated each other. They were both extraordinarily intelligent, had the same rough fates, and both had to make a decision in their lives. I'm not asking for anything in return. Just treat these resources as a gift from me, a confidant of mine. If he's lucky enough to obtain the crown, that would be great. But if he doesn't, it doesn't matter. For this holy meat, I've made other preparations. That's my real chance to turn the tables. The third prince lightly smiled. Suyu had been on the run for 10 days. The vital energy in his body had been depleted several times. His vital energy had increased, and he was on the verge of breaking through to level 5. Now, the first prince had given everything he had to help Suyu train. He was on the verge of breaking through. Feeling the vital energy in his body being nourished and strengthened, Suyu was extremely focused. Buzz, 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 his body trembled. The vital energy in Suyu's body was at its limit, as if it was about to break through the restraints of his body. Half a day later, rumble, Suyu felt a light ringing in his head. Following that, a special gas in the air was absorbed into his body. His vital energy had increased by 1-fold. Level 5 of the martial path. Suyu had broken through. Feeling the abundant vital energy of level 5, which was twice as dense as level 4, Suyu realized how amazing it was that he had once defeated a level 5. Now, if he were to fight with Lin Xiao again, Suyu was confident that he could defeat him. But Suyu understood. His abilities were not enough. Far from enough. Wanting to fight for the first crown at the holy meet, with his current abilities, was just a pipe dream. There were still 3 days until the holy meet. In these 3 days, he had to use all his energy and train like crazy. He had 3 main directions for his training. First, Tempest, a medium-level cultivation technique. He was only at stage 3 lower class, and there was still a lot of room for improvement. Second, Purple Star Thunderbolt, a saint-level cultivation technique. He was only at the beginner level, and had yet to reach lower class. With every improvement, his abilities would increase by a large margin. Third, the Holy Decree. It was impossible to measure the level of enlightenment he had achieved. But looking back, every time he gained enlightenment, his abilities would increase by a level. For the next 3 days, he will use his time manipulation to train like crazy, while time is sped up by 30 times. 3 days, with time sped up by 30 times, Suyu would have a total of 99 days, a full 3 months. Time was of the essence. Suyu closed his eyes and immediately began his enlightenment. In the first prince's mansion, a letter was delivered by pigeon. After reading the letter on the pigeon, the first prince's eyes turned cold, and a cold, killing intent enveloped his body. On his right cheek there was a long, hideous scar like a flesh-colored centipede. His right eye was covered with a black eye patch, making him look like a one-eyed dragon. As such, he looked even more cruel and ruthless. What a good brother, to think that Suyu is in your hands! The first prince clenched his fist, his eyes filled with hatred. The death of his second brother and the pain of his disfigurement had been deeply etched in the first prince's heart. As long as Suyu was not killed, he would not have a day of peace. But now that Suyu had entered the third prince's mansion, he could no longer send people to assassinate him. There were also martial artists in the third prince's mansion. Trying to assassinate Suyu secretly was no different from a fantasy. Once discovered, the third prince could use this opportunity to report the first prince's assassination to the outside world. He was afraid that the sanctuary would immediately send people to kill him. Hence, before the holy meet ended, he could not act blindly without thinking. Bai Qixiong passed down the order. The imperial guards are to guard the city. After the holy meet ends, the entire city is to capture and kill Suyu. Once discovered, kill him. The first prince passed down the order coldly. After the holy meet ended, the holy seal would disappear. There would be no risk for him to kill Suyu in front of everyone. Bai Qixiong broke out in cold sweat. Suyu had actually entered the imperial capital under their noses? Yes. I will do it immediately. Bai Qixiong hurriedly turned around, wanting to atone for his mistake. Wait! The first prince's face turned gloomy. Because of your incompetence, there is a possibility that I will be exposed. Now I have something for you to do. Bai Qixiong hurriedly knelt down. I did not do my job well. Please punish me, Your Highness. There is no need. I am in need of manpower. You still have the chance to atone for your mistake. Now, go and do something immediately. The first prince said coldly. That is, kill bodyguard Chun, who was working together with you. In the process of the two of them working together to capture Suyu, bodyguard Chun had already seen Bai Qixiong's face. He also knew that Bai Qixiong was the first prince's man. Now that Suyu was still alive, he had to kill bodyguard Chun just in case. Dead men tell no tales. Yes. Bai Qixiong wiped off his cold sweat. Also. Suddenly, the first prince said mysteriously, Have you made any progress with the cultivation technique I asked you to comprehend? Bai Qixiong's heart turned cold. He hurriedly took out a sheepskin scroll and offered it to the first prince with both hands. Your Highness, this is my most recent comprehension. Please take a look. Grabbing the sheepskin scroll, the first prince's eyes were burning with passion. Yes, you have done well. Remember, you are not allowed to spread the cultivation technique that you have seen. Bai Qixiong bowed in acknowledgement and left quickly. After Bai Qixiong left, the first prince's eyes gradually turned cold. Teacher! With a light shout, a stooped old man in a red robe with sunken eyes descended from the roof like a ghost. He was the first prince's martial path teacher. He was a frightening level 7 peak of the martial path. The first prince passed the sheepskin scroll to the old man in the red robe. The old man flipped through the scroll. His sunken eyes shone brightly and he let out a gratified smile. Not bad. This is indeed the last part of the comprehension of floating light shadow. As expected of the holy genius, who was ranked 11th in the holy meet 15 years ago. He was able to comprehend the saint-level cultivation technique of the imperial family to such an extent. This sheepskin scroll was Bai Qixiong's comprehension of the saint-level cultivation technique floating light shadow. Chapter 49. The imperial family had not been able to comprehend floating light shadow for 100 years because it required an extremely high level of comprehension. In the entire world, other than the geniuses of the 10 great sacred gates with extraordinary comprehension, no one else could comprehend it. The Crown Prince wanted to borrow the comprehension of the geniuses from the 10 sacred gates to cultivate this long-lost saint-level cultivation technique. Unfortunately, the top 10 geniuses of every sacred gate were all absorbed into the saint realm, and the Crown Prince could not do anything about it. Only Bai Qixiong, ranked 11th, was the person with the highest possibility of comprehending a saint-level cultivation technique other than the 10 sacred gates geniuses. Now, he had finished comprehending the saint-tier cultivation method. Teacher, will I be able to succeed in my cultivation through these comprehensions? The first prince's eyes were burning with passion. The red-robed old man shook his head. Not enough. After all, he is not a true saint realm disciple, so his comprehension ability is slightly lacking. As such, his comprehension is rather rough, and he is still a distance away from successfully cultivating it. I will go back to ponder over it and make some slight changes. I hope that you will be able to digest these insights as soon as possible and successfully cultivate this saint realm cultivation technique. Thank you, teacher. The first imperial prince was excited, but his eyes gradually turned cold. In this case, Bai Qixiong is no longer of any use to us. After seeing the saint-tier cultivation technique passed down by our royal family and chasing after the bearer of the Holy Seal, it's time to send him on his way. The red-robed old man laughed sinisterly. Leave this to me. A chess piece like Bai Qixiong must be thrown away when the time comes. 3 days later, the Fonglin Empire's annual grand event, the Holy Meet, was about to begin. Experts from all over gathered to witness the prosperity of the empire. The population was flourishing. Under the ostentatious peace and prosperity, undercurrents were surging. The atmosphere in the third prince's palace grew increasingly tense. In the evening, in the pavilion, the third prince, who was used to reading, was in a restless mood and paced back and forth uneasily. Master, the heavenly dragon meeting of the royal family is about to begin. We cannot wait for Su Yu any longer. Lin Xiao could tell that the third prince was feeling uneasy and said hurriedly. The third prince put down the ancient book and shook his head slightly. The hour is not up yet. Shua, suddenly, a gentle breeze blew in the courtyard. A purple-clothed figure, like the shadow of a white cloud, like duckweed floating in the river, arrived in front of the pavilion. He was as handsome as an immortal and in high spirit. A pair of deep eyes seemed to be able to see through everything in the world. Her black hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall. Her purple robe fluttered gently in the wind. With a smile on his face, the third prince stepped forward and cupped his fists. Congratulations, Brother Su. You look much better than before, and your strength is incomparable to before. Thank you, third prince, for your help. Su Yu cupped his fists in thanks. Lin Zhao's face was filled with displeasure. He felt that it was not worth it for the third prince to waste so many resources. He calmly said, Su Yu, I hope you do not disappoint my master's good intentions. Su Yu's eyes flickered, and he shot a look at Lin Xiao. Brother Lin, I know that you were slightly inferior to me that day, and you were not satisfied. Why don't we have another battle now? Su Yu's eyes flickered. Lin Xiao creased his eyebrows. He believed that if he had been more careful, he might not have lost to Su Yu. Hence, he already had the intention to fight again. Lifting his eyes to look at the third prince muttered to himself for a moment before slowly nodding his head. He also wanted to know the reason behind Su Yu's confidence. Of course, the third prince did not believe that Su Yu's abilities would improve by leaps and bounds in just 3 short days. He only felt that Su Yu's physical strength and injuries had completely recovered. Receiving the third prince's approval, Lin Xiao was overjoyed. He was confident that he would not be at a disadvantage. It would be impolite for me to refuse. Lin Xiao took a step forward and raised his hand, mountain-crushing hammer. It was as if a hammer descended from the heavens, and its power was as shocking as ever. Su Yu's expression was calm, as if nothing had happened. Tempest. Su Yu lifted his leg and kicked. Between his legs, a cold wind blew, and ice and snow fell. Su Yu's leg was like an ice dragon destroying the world, traversing the world of ice and snow. Together with the cold wind, it froze everything. Crash! Lin Xiao let out a pathetic groan, retreating 7 to 8 meters. A thick layer of ice formed on his fists, freezing them together. His entire body was covered in a cold fog, as if he had walked out from a world of ice. His entire body was shivering from the cold. Lin Xiao was extremely shocked. The power of a medium-level cultivation technique of Stage 3 upper class. The third prince's expression changed. 3 days ago, Su Yu's Tempest was only at Stage 3 lower class. In a mere 3 days, it had actually risen to another level. A look of shock filled his eyes. On the other hand, Su Yu had not moved an inch from his original position, casually retracting his leg. He had already cultivated Tempest to Stage 3 upper class, and was infinitely close to top class, just a step away. Although Lin Xiao was shocked, he was still unwilling to admit defeat. How could he admit defeat so easily? The vital energy in his body vibrated, evaporating the cold energy in his body. He approached Su Yu, unwilling to admit defeat. Earth splitting 3 strokes. Wrapped in green flames, it burned the heavens and destroyed thousands of miles of mountains and rivers. A terrifying power surged forth. The strong energy caused Su Yu's purple robe to flutter, but it could not blow away his calm eyes. Purple Star Thunderbolt! Su Yu casually retaliated. A layer of fine thunderbolt surrounded his palm, like purple thunder scales, dancing with a dangerous arc. Creak, crash. With a head-on collision, the earth splitting 3 strokes disintegrated like a clay ox entering the sea. Lin Xiao's mouth was filled with fresh blood, his body involuntarily flying 10 meters away. Puff! Lin Xiao's organs were shaken, and he could not help but lightly spit out a mouthful of blood, as if he was lightly injured. Lin Xiao's face was filled with shock, as if he had seen a ghost in broad daylight. He was terrified. The same purple star thunderbolt 3 days later, compared to 3 days ago, was its power just 1 level higher? It was twice as powerful as it was before. Climbing to his feet, Lin Xiao's eyes were filled with deep shock. He had lost willingly. Thank you, Mr. Su, for showing mercy. The third prince's eyes flashed. What? Su Yu had held back? If he had not held back, wouldn't that punch have killed Lin Xiao on the spot? From a draw with a level 5 peak, to being able to easily kill a level 5 peak, it had only taken 3 days. How could Su Yu's abilities have increased so much in 3 days? Combining the rumors of Su Yu that he had gathered from the Xianyu prefecture, Su Yu was merely an ordinary silver student a few months ago. However, he had risen like a comet, piercing through time and space, seizing the title of Silver King and suppressing 2 generations of Gold Kings. With a single finger, the demon geniuses were defeated, and Su Yu stood proudly at the Martial Arts Training Institute. Su Yu's potential was one of a kind. If he was given more time, he would definitely become a strong martial artist. A shred of regret reverberated in the third prince's heart. How good would it be if I could give you another 3 years? It was hard to predict how much Su Yu would grow in 3 years. At that time, he would have a higher chance of defeating the first prince. Unfortunately, time waited for no man. The current Su Yu could not help him in the slightest. Brother Su, after tonight it will be the holy meat. Do you still have anything you need? The third prince chuckled. Before a great disaster, he was willing to do everything he could to help this monstrous friend of his. Su Yu thought for a moment and slowly shook his head. I have no use for resources at the moment. The only thing I need is enlightenment. Enlightenment during a battle. Within 3 days, he had swallowed countless treasures. The energy within his body had settled in his blood vessels. Relying on resources alone was no longer useful for increasing his abilities. It would be better to experience a few more battles and gain enlightenment during the battles. Unable to help Suyu, the third prince sighed. He looked up at the sky and his expression gradually turned serious. Suyu, come with me tonight. It is time to meet up with them. Them? Suyu was confused. The third prince was surprised and coldly said, Did the Duke of Xianyu not tell you? Thinking back to the day when the Duke of Xianyu gave him the holy order, the third prince understood. The Duke of Xianyu probably did not have the time to tell Suyu. There are 2 types of people participating in the Empire's holy meet. The first type is from the Martial Arts Training Institute. They have gathered almost all of the geniuses in the Empire, and the holy meet is dominated by them. The second type is from the Imperial family. For example, you are representing the Xianyu Prefecture. Every duke has a recommendation. Hence, other than you, there are 12 other dukes representing the Empire. In the royal family, the 3 princes each have a recommendation. Including you, the royal family has a total of 16 representatives. Over the years, before the start of the holy meet, the 16 representatives of the imperial family would gather together and hold the imperial family's heavenly dragon meeting to spar with one another. This is a great opportunity to understand one's strength in the holy meet, and it's something that cannot be missed. The third prince patiently explained. Suyu thought for a moment. His eyes flashed. Will the first prince be spectating? The third prince understood what Suyu was thinking. He nodded. The 16 representatives will all be present. My eldest brother and I will be spectating. You will be able to see him. But, the third prince reminded, if you want to kill him on the spot and perish together with him, I advise you not to do so. You have already exposed the diabolic sword, a secret technique of the soul. My eldest brother will not be unprepared. You will not be able to kill him from a distance. Suyu had also considered this point. After hearing the third prince's confirmation, he could only give up on the idea of perishing together. Then let's go. Suyu's eyes were cold. In the end, he still had to obtain the holy crown. This was the only way to take revenge. Wait a moment. The person I recommended is still on the way. The third prince's eyes glowed. The 3 princes each had a recommendation. The third prince was no exception. Suyu was not surprised. He could think of using the holy meet as an opportunity to turn the tables. The third prince was shrewd and could not have thought of this. He naturally arranged for someone he trusted to participate in the holy meet. Before this, the third prince had said that he would take an extra gamble. Suyu finally understood. The third prince had another strong backup. After waiting for half an hour, a blue-clothed youth walked over like the wind. He was about 16 years old and wore an azure robe. He had a medium build and an ordinary face. His expression was calm and his eyes were indifferent. It was as if he did not care about anything in the world. He looked straight ahead. In his eyes, Suyu and Lin Xiao were like air. He arrived in front of the third prince and knelt on one knee. Third prince, we can go now. Suyu lightly creased his brows. Rather than saying that the azure youth was aloof, it would be better to say that he was cold and arrogant. Suyu could feel a sense of arrogance from him. Other than the third prince, who made him lower his head, no one else was worthy of his attention. The third prince was relaxed. Dong Lin, please rise. Dong Lin stood up and stood at his original position. In his eyes, there was only the third prince and not Suyu or Lin Xiao. However, he had the right to be arrogant. He was only 16 years old, but his abilities were at level 6 lower tier of the martial path. Such nature-defying abilities were frightening. In the Martial Arts Training Institute of the Xianyu Prefecture, as far as Suyu knew, there was only one person who had reached level 6 of the martial path. That person was the #1 demon in the Martial Arts Training Institute of the Xianyu Prefecture, Zheng Yilin. He had comprehended the holy decree. At the same time, he had cultivated to level 6 lower tier of the martial path. He was a terrifying demon who could possibly fight his way into the top 10. Chapter 50. Since everyone's here, let's go. The third prince nodded and looked at Dong Lin, his eyes filled with anticipation. Sensing the third prince's attitude, Su Yu understood that the third prince did not place his hopes on him. However, Su Yu did not have any objections. The third prince did not ask for anything in return. He gave him precious resources and protected him. Su Yu was not even grateful enough, so why would he hate him? The royal clan's heavenly dragon meeting would be held at the Saint Gates Arena. The Saint Gate Arena was specially built by the Empire for the holy meet. It cost hundreds of millions of dollars to build, and it could accommodate tens of thousands of spectators. It was usually sealed off and heavily guarded. Outsiders were not allowed to take a single step inside. Only tonight, when the Heavenly Dragon meeting was organized by the Royal Clan, would the Royal Clan allow the people of the Royal Clan to enter first and use the arena to spar. Today, the 16 monstrous geniuses recommended by the royal family would meet under the moonlight. The people who recommended them were all present. Among the 13 dukes, the entire family of the Duke of Jiuquan was executed, and the Duke of Xianyu was sent to prison. The other 2 were absent. Among the princes, the second prince had been killed by Su Yu and was absent. Apart from them, everyone else was present. Su Yu. The first prince's pupils dilated. He was extremely surprised. He had already known that Su Yu had snuck into the imperial city secretly. However, he was surprised that Su Yu had actually participated in the holy meet. Could it be that he wanted to use the holy meet as an opportunity to make a comeback? If Su Yu fought his way into the top 10 and became a sanctuary disciple, it would be easy for him to destroy him when he returned. However, when he thought of Su Yu's current strength, he shook his head with a smile. He had no chance of entering the top 10. At the holy meet, there were as many demons as the clouds. Although Su Yu was strong, it would be difficult for him to compete with them, unless a few years later. However, the first prince would not give Su Yu a few years. Now that the holy meet had ended, he had to get rid of this huge threat at all costs. Hearing this, Su Yu turned his head and looked over. He did not hide his murderous intents and said coldly, "First prince, I have said before that if I don't kill you, I will never be a man. The sun and moon can bear witness to this oath, and the heaven and earth can bear witness to it." The first prince's eyelids twitched, and his killing intent intensified. If this kid didn't die, he wouldn't be able to rest in peace. Every word was filled with killing intent, and every sentence was heart-shaking. It caused the peaceful atmosphere to freeze all of a sudden. The people, who knew about the feud between Su Yu and the royal family, looked on coldly from the sidelines. "You overestimate yourself." Beside the first prince, a short-haired young man stood with a sword in his arms. His cold eyes shone with a sharp, cold light. The powerful aura was like the roar of mountains and the roar of a tsunami. Su Yu felt as if a mountain was pressing down on him, making it difficult for him to breathe. Humph! Su Yu gave a cold hum. The vital energy in his body vibrated, and his oppressive aura was instantly swept away. "Watch your mouth!" The short-haired youth snorted in contempt. The first prince sneered. "All right, Du Yuntian, why bother with such an ignorant person?" Dong Lin's arrogant eyes revealed a rare tremor. Level 6 upper tier. The third prince's pupils shrank. The first prince had actually cultivated a level 6 upper tier Du Yuntian. "Dong Lin, what are your chances of winning if you fight him?" The third prince was shocked and had a bad premonition. If Du Yuntian suppressed Dong Lin, he would lose everything. After the first prince ascended to the throne, he would not be given any chance to grow again. Perhaps, in the near future, the third prince would end up like the Duke of Xianyu, charged with treason and thrown into prison. Dong Lin's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. Very strong. But if I use my full strength, I might still stand a chance. Does this mean that there is still a chance of winning? The third prince was slightly relieved. The group sat down. There were only a few dozen of them in the huge holy arena. The atmosphere was cold and empty. Geniuses recommended by the imperial family, tomorrow you will represent the imperial family and fight against the 13 martial arts training institutes to gain honor for the imperial family. Tonight you will all have a friendly match to warm up for tomorrow's match. The first prince had the demeanor of the leader of the crowd. Under the moonlight, the hideous scar on his right cheek was ghastly and terrifying. Du Yuntian stood with his sword in his arms. His sharp gaze coldly swept across the other 15 geniuses. When his gaze swept past Su Yu, his eyes paused for a moment, but it was like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. After scanning the crowd, Du Yuntian shook his head coldly and retreated to the bottom of the arena. I will not participate. The first prince laughed. Du Yuntian, why not spar with them? There is no one worthy of me drawing my sword. I am not interested. His arrogant words enraged the remaining 15 geniuses. But they had to admit that with Du Yuntian's strength of level 6 upper tier, there were only a few worthy of him fighting. The only one who could be worthy was the young genius recommended by the third prince, Dong Lin. But from Du Yuntian's tone, even Dong Lin was not worthy of him fighting. Dong Lin was proud and aloof. His cold eyes flashed, and he wanted to challenge Du Yuntian. But he received a hint from the third prince not to force himself and to conserve his strength. The third prince's plan was that since Du Yuntian was arrogant and condescending, let him be. Dong Lin would conserve his strength and take Du Yuntian by surprise at the holy meet tomorrow. Suppressing his unwillingness and anger, Dong Lin took the initiative to choose a strong level 5 peak martial artist from Qingshan Prefecture. He was a genius recommended by the Duke. I am Zhang Ling, may I know your name? Zhang Ling was not afraid. He jumped onto the arena and was polite. Dong Lin was arrogant and cold. Cut the crap. I will let you have one move, make your move. Zhang Ling's expression turned stiff. You are too arrogant. Qingshan Prefecture was vast and boundless. To be able to stand out from millions of geniuses, how shocking was that? However, he was looked down upon at the Imperial Dragon meeting. Dong Lin stood there arrogantly. His eyes were full of arrogance, as if he did not notice Zhang Ling's presence. You are too much. Zhang Ling attacked furiously. Raging inferno. Zhang Ling's vital energy surged and surrounded his body like a layer of burning flames. Waves of heat surged in all directions. The audience could feel the remaining heat. What a shocking cultivation technique. It should be a top-notch middle-grade cultivation technique. Moreover, it has been cultivated to stage 2 great perfection. It is only one step away from the highest stage. Raging flames surrounded Dong Lin and burned the sky. A terrifying power swept in all directions. Swoosh, Zhang Ling charged towards Dong Lin with the raging flames. The majestic flames were about to burn Dong Lin into ashes. However, Dong Lin stood there without moving an inch. His eyes were still full of arrogance. Child's play. Dong Lin raised his hand and grabbed. Rumble, the raging flames around him were all extinguished with one grab. The powerful raging inferno was easily countered by Dong Lin. Zhang Ling's expression changed. How could his all-out attack be countered so easily? Dong Lin did not move an inch. His eyes glowed coldly. You have given way to me. It is my turn now. Insect awakening finger. Dong Lin extended his index finger. It was as if the sun had risen from the east. Layers of raging flames surrounded his finger. The terrifying power shook the air. A series of afterimages stacked on top of each other. Zhang Ling's expression changed drastically as he felt his scalp go numb. Raging inferno. At the critical moment, Zhang Ling once again used his ultimate technique. Bang boom, Zhang Ling let out a pathetic cry as he was sent flying 20 meters away. He fell off the stage and spat out a mouthful of blood. Middle grade cultivation technique, top class. Su Yu's pupils dilated. The first prince's expression turned serious. Zhang Ling had actually cultivated a middle-grade cultivation technique to top class. Only Du Yuntian was disdainful, commenting coldly. Zhang Ling's foundation is solid, his vital energy is dense, and his cultivation technique is extremely powerful. His shortcomings are his lack of skill, slow reactions, unstable lower body, and many flaws. Dong Lin's cultivation level is high. His cultivation technique is at top class, and his moves are smooth and skilled. His shortcomings are his weak control of vital energy. If he wastes too much vital energy, he will definitely be at a disadvantage in a prolonged battle. Zhang Ling was convinced. Du Yuntian's words had hit the nail on the head. Dong Lin's eyes were like lightning. Do I need you to comment? Glancing at the remaining 13 geniuses, Dong Lin coldly stepped down from the stage. I withdraw as well. Too weak. Boring. The faces of the 13 geniuses were burning. In any prefecture, they would be geniuses that only appeared once in 100 years. But here, they were being looked down upon. They were unwilling, but having seen Zhang Ling's fate, they knew the difference between themselves and Du Yuntian, Dong Lin, and the rest. They could only swallow their anger. The sudden departure of two geniuses caused an awkward silence. The first prince smiled coldly. Zhanli, haven't you always wanted to fight the son-in-law of the Duke of Xianyu? Why don't you give it a try? The crowd looked over. Zhanli was a level 5 peak genius. His abilities were comparable to Zhang Ling's. Many people had a strange look on their faces. If they remembered correctly, Zhanli was a genius recommended by the second prince, and the second prince had been killed by Su Yu. Zhanli was 17 years old. He was small and skinny, with rough facial features and a wild aura. A faint, ferocious aura surrounded his body. A pair of cold eyes looked over. Su Yu felt like he was being stared at by a wild beast. Su Yu. Zhanli spat out Su Yu's name through gritted teeth. His voice was filled with hatred. His eyes were like those of a wild beast. Rumble, Zhanli took big steps onto the stage. He looked down from above and pointed at Su Yu's nose. Come up here. He should have been serving the second prince of the empire. He should have ascended to the heavens in a single step and stood above millions of people. But with the death of the second prince, everything had been destroyed. Among everyone present, he was the second person to hate Su Yu the most besides the first prince. As you wish. Su Yu leaped onto the stage and faced him coldly. Zhanli's heart was filled with hatred and he attacked furiously. Iron Flow Horse Stance Kick. A medium-level cultivation technique, stage 3 lower class. With one step, it was as if thousands of horses and soldiers were galloping. Dust was stirred and the atmosphere was heavy. The blood of those who heard it was boiling and their hearts were thumping wildly. They felt extremely pressured. As Zhanli approached, Su Yu felt even more pressured. Zhang Ling, who was below the stage, was shocked. As expected of the candidate recommended by the second prince, a medium-level cultivation technique, to be able to comprehend to stage 3 lower class. After rehearsing in his mind, Zhang Ling broke out in a cold sweat. His arrogance was greatly diminished. He realized that if his opponent was Zhanli, he would not be able to last more than 10 moves. It was extremely difficult to comprehend a medium-level cultivation technique. The difference in ability between each level was huge. In the Qingshan prefecture, Zhang Ling had looked down on geniuses. But the Sky Dragon meeting had made him feel inferior. At the Holy Meet, there were as many demons as there were clouds. He was only considered below average. Zhanli took big strides. His leg technique was like 10,000 horses galloping. It was shocking. A layer of red light surrounded his legs. As he ran, his legs were like a flaming mountain, moving crazily. A primitive, savage, rough, and wild aura assaulted Su Yu. Kneel! Zhanli took big strides like lightning. His leg, which was surrounded by a red light, attacked Su Yu's chest. The wind blew the black hair in front of Su Yu's forehead. Sand covered the coldness in Su Yu's eyes. Chapter 51. Blizzard Storm. Medium-level cultivation technique, 3rd stage, large success. Hoo-hoo, under the kick, the ice exploded and the cold wind raged. Just a second ago it was still spring. The next moment, it was a world of ice and snow. An incomparably cold wind and snow surrounded his legs. The leg that shot out was like an ice dragon roaring through the world of cold wind and ice. With a furious roar, it collided with the galloping army. Clang, the two of them collided. Zhanli's beast-like eyes spat out a horrified light. Rub, rub, rub. Zhanli's mountain-like leg was covered in thick frost. The bone-piercing cold invaded his limbs and meridians. Putong, his legs were frozen stiff and he lost his flexibility. He lost his balance as he retreated and fell on his butt. On the other hand, Su Yu was standing quietly at his original position, untainted by even a speck of dust. Only his fluttering purple robe and black hair were fluttering in the wind. His posture was wanton, and his spirit was magnificent. The image of a powerful battle flashed in his mind. The difference between the two was obvious. Zhanli was horrified, and a boundless pressure surged into his heart. It was obvious that Su Yu had the ability to completely defeat him. Su Yu calmly glanced at him. The second prince did not make it, and the contestants he recommended also did not make it. How disappointing! Feeling humiliated, Zhanli was speechless. He was indeed inferior to Su Yu. After he finished speaking, Su Yu walked down the stage expressionlessly. I withdraw. There is no point in exchanging pointers. Defeating Zhanli didn't give him the slightest sense of accomplishment. In terms of strength, Zhanli was no match for the third prince's bodyguard, Lin Xiao. The audience sucked in a breath of cold air. Dong Lin was a formidable level 6 martial artist, so it was not surprising that he would be able to defeat Zhang Ling. But Su Yu, who was at level 5 lower tier, had defeated Zhanli, who was at level 5 peak, with one move. In terms of strength, Zhanli was even above Zhang Ling. It is rumored that the son-in-law of the Duke of Xianyu is a demonic genius. Now that I have seen it, it is indeed true. Humph! What was this? Do you know about the Martial Arts Training Institute? It was said that as the Silver King, he had suppressed 2 generations of Gold Kings at the same time. The evildoer of the academy was also defeated by him in one move. There are even rumors that he has comprehended a terrifying holy decree. All of a sudden, the news about Su Yu quickly spread among them. The people of the empire paid more attention to the Duke of Xianyu than to the happenings in the Xianyu prefecture. After all, he was the strongest duke of his generation. As for his son-in-law, no one cared about him. There were very few rumors about him. Now, Su Yu had revealed his skills and shocked everyone present. Without a doubt, he was the strongest representative of the imperial family after Du Yuntian and Dong Lin. The pupils of the first prince shrank to the size of a needle. That day, at the Duke of Xianyu's palace, the first prince and Su Yu faced off head-on. Su Yu resisted with all his might, but was still severely injured by the first prince. He could not even withstand a single blow. However, how long has it been? Is he already able to easily defeat a powerhouse at my level? His potential was too terrifying. An indescribable panic surged in his heart. At this moment, the first prince was a little regretful. He might have made a mistake by rashly attacking the Duke of Xianyu. Restraining his remorse, the first prince stared at Su Yu. His heart was filled with murderous intent. This person could not be allowed to live. After the holy meet, he would be charged with treason for the assassination of the second prince. He would be hunted down by the entire empire and would not be allowed to live for another moment. The third prince secretly admired Su Yu. As expected of Su Yu, even in the face of the second prince's minions, he still restrained himself and did not reveal his full strength. Du Yuntian coldly stared at Su Yu and calmly commented, "Zhang Li's leg technique is skillful and has integrated it with his own aura. The sound of his footsteps has the effect of intimidating the opponent. He uses it skillfully and has rich battle experience. Commendable, not bad. As for Su Yu, his cultivation level is low and his foundation is weak. He was able to defeat Zhang Li because of the power of his technique and level of understanding. His victory was mostly due to luck. Please refrain from being arrogant and work hard." The crowd remained calm. Du Yuntian was the strongest among the geniuses recommended by the imperial family. He naturally had the right to comment. However, his comments about Su Yu were inevitably biased. Fighting someone of a higher cultivation level was not rare, but fighting someone 2 cultivation levels above him was rare. Such strength, in Du Yuntian's words, was nothing. Thinking of Du Yuntian and Su Yu's positions, the crowd felt relieved. Su Yu shrugged his shoulders and remained calm. Du Yuntian was conceited and arrogant, but Su Yu could not be bothered. Furthermore, Du Yuntian's words were not without reason. Su Yu's abilities had improved by leaps and bounds, but his foundation was not solid enough. He needed to work hard. As for winning this battle, it was mostly due to luck. Su Yu did not comment on it. He had only revealed a portion of his abilities. If he had used his full strength, he could have killed Zhang Li in the blink of an eye. Dong Lin tilted his head and looked at Su Yu indifferently. His voice was cold. Barely passable. Su Yu calmly smiled and pretended not to hear. He had no intention of befriending Dong Lin. Humph! Dong Lin had always been the one to ignore others. Now that he was ignored by Su Yu, he could not help but let out a cold grunt. He retracted his gaze. "Don't meet me at the meet." Su Yu could not be bothered with Dong Lin's threat. The third prince felt helpless. Dong Lin was strong, but his personality was stubborn and difficult to change. Following that, the other 12 representatives went up the stage and sparred with each other. However, with the battle between Dong Lin and Su Yu before them, the following battles seemed boring and boring. The morning light pierced through the blue sky. The sun in the east was dazzling. The sunlight dispersed the darkness. A warm current flowed into the hearts of the people, turning them into boiling hot blood. The holy meet was finally here. Creek. The holy arena, which had been sealed for a long time, was officially open after a year. The spectators waiting outside were filled with excitement as they filed into the arena. The spectator seats, which could accommodate 10,000 people, were completely filled within an hour. Outside the arena, there were people who were unwilling to stay, hoping that there would be an empty seat. Whoosh! The imperial guards of the imperial capital arrived in large numbers, separating the crowd and creating a wide pathway. Groups of people shuttled through the pathway. Most of them were geniuses and young ladies with frightening abilities. They came from the martial arts training institutes of the 13 prefectures. Each of the 13 martial arts training institutes had sent their strongest 10 people to compete for the Holy Crown. How vast was the Fenglin Empire? How vast was the territory? How many demonic geniuses were there? Now, they were all gathered in one place to begin the pinnacle of the empire. The 13 martial arts training institutes entered the arena one after another. At the preparation area, there were seats prepared for them, right next to the seats of the imperial family. Coincidentally, the Martial Arts Training Institute of the Xianyu Prefecture was the closest to the seats of the imperial family. After Xia Jingyu entered the arena, her beautiful eyes scanned the surroundings, nervously searching for a familiar figure. At that moment, a purple robe entered her field of vision. The purple robe fluttered in the wind, his black hair as black as ink cascading down. He was as handsome as a celestial being, talented, and had an exceptional temperament. Her anxious heart instantly calmed down, as if as long as the purple figure was safe, her heart would be filled with satisfaction. He has successfully gained the trust of the third prince. Looking at Su Yu quietly standing beside the third prince, Xia Jingyu's heart was at peace. As if he felt her gaze, Su Yu looked up, his eyes filled with gratitude, but also complicated emotions. With a tap of his toes, he turned into the shadow of a white cloud and turned into duckweed floating on the waves of the river. He drifted leisurely beside Xia Jingyu. He wanted to say something, but in the end, he did not know what to say. Xia Jingyu bit her red lips and lowered her head. The afterglow was like a cloud that flew up to her cheek. She did not know what to say. After all, the two of them had an ambiguous and awkward past. A man and a woman, one handsome and charming, the other peerless, stood side by side, forming a beautiful scene. Who is that lady from the Xianyu prefecture? She is so beautiful, like a fairy from a painting, one look at her is unforgettable. Who is that purple-robed man? He looks extraordinary, like a man from the mortal world, I really want to get to know him. The male geniuses of the Xianyu Prefecture Martial Arts Training Institute felt their hearts break out of jealousy. Xia Jingyu, what kind of peerless beauty was she? What kind of beauty was she? But for Su Yu, she did not hesitate to destroy her own chastity. It was rumored that the housemaster had the intention of taking Su Yu in as his son-in-law, marrying his daughter to him. This rumor had caused Su Yu to feel even more hatred. Su Yu, you are the representative of the royal family. What are you doing at the Xianyu Prefecture Martial Arts Training Institute? Aren't you going to avoid arousing suspicion? Fang Qingzhou's expression was gloomy. As the inspector of the Xianyu Prefecture Martial Arts Training Institute, his father naturally had to be present at the holy meet. Although Fang Qingzhou did not have the qualifications to participate, he was brought by his father to observe, hoping that observing would be beneficial to his training. A few days ago, the father and son met up with Xia Linxian and the others. Fang Qingzhou immediately heard the rumor that Xia Linxian wanted to marry Xia Jingyu to Su Yu. This news, to him, was like a bolt from the blue. After further questioning, he found out that the chaste Xia Jingyu had shared a bed with Su Yu, and they were both naked. Fang Qingzhou could not believe that the woman he had decided on had been slept with by another man. But Su Yu was no longer the same as before. Su Yu's abilities were above his, and he was also a holy seal-bearer. Although Fang Qingzhou was angry, he did not dare to be as arrogant as before. At this moment, he was reprimanding Su Yu in a low voice, but he was actually cowardly on the inside. It was rumored that the second prince, who was at level 4 peak, had been ruthlessly killed by Su Yu. Who in the Empire would dare to have such audacity? He was a little afraid that Su Yu's murderous intent would rise and kill him as well. Hearing this, Su Yu turned his head and looked over. His deep eyes emitted a cold light as he coldly said, "Why, do you have a problem with that?" Feeling the murderous intent, Fang Qingzhou felt a chill down his spine. He shrank his neck, but did not dare to talk back. Without his father by his side, he did not dare to act rashly. Fang Qingzhou's submission caused the mouths of several demons to twitch. A coward who bullies the weak and fears the strong. He was arrogant in the Martial Arts Training Institute, and even scolded us demons. But in front of Su Yu, he is like a dog, shrinking after a single bark. Xia Jingyu's disdain deepened. People like Fang Qingzhou were truly disgusting. Xia Linxian saw everything, his eyes still filled with resentment. He reminded Su Yu, "Su Yu, you are no longer a student of the Martial Arts Training Institute in the Xianyu Prefecture. Before the battle, you should not linger, lest you be suspected of colluding with others." Su Yu turned back to look. Ever since he had arrived, many members of the imperial family had been secretly watching him. They were full of caution, and they did not trust him. Nodding his head, Su Yu stared at Xia Jingyu. After hesitating for a moment, he said, Jingyu, I will give you an explanation. Xia Jingyu's heart thumped, her cheeks burning red. Her voice was as soft as a mosquito's. Whoosh. Su Yu turned and leaped back into the imperial family. Hearing Su Yu mention Jingyu, Zheng Yilan, who was not far away, frowned. He was extremely unhappy. Xiao Li coldly said, "Humph, how arrogant. Even after leaving the training institute, he still thinks of Senior Xia, calling her Jingyu. Does he really think he is the son-in-law of the Xia housemaster?" Xia Jingyu was the one who had asked Su Yu to call her Jingyu. Su Yu was no longer a student of the training institute, and was no longer her junior. Calling her senior was inappropriate. Moreover, the two of them were close, and it was not unusual for them to call each other by name. Ignorant fool. He is about to die, and he is still so annoying. Zheng Yilan's expression turned gloomy. Everyone had witnessed Su Yu's predicament. Even if he could enter the imperial capital alive, he would not be able to leave alive. Chapter 52. After pondering for a while, Zheng Yilan walked over and smiled warmly. Jingyu, have you thought it through? Xia Jingyu looked up and the blush on her cheeks gradually disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by a tranquil expression that kept people at arm's length. There's no need. Thank you for your kind intentions, Senior Zheng. Also, just call me Junior Sister or Miss Xia. I don't want others to misunderstand. Zheng Yilan had hinted to Xia Jingyu a month ago that he could personally demonstrate his holy decree for her to observe. However, the condition was that he hoped to improve his relationship with Xia Jingyu. In other words, he could demonstrate his holy decree to Xia Jingyu, but Xia Jingyu had to agree to certain conditions, such as becoming his girlfriend or getting engaged. This request was not excessive. How rare was the holy decree! It was a peerless genius that could only comprehend it by chance. In the huge Fenglin Empire, there were many talented people, but how many of them could comprehend the holy decree? The holy decree was so precious that even blood relatives might not be willing to impart it. Zheng Yilan had sacrificed so much, so it was normal for him to ask for something in return. Unfortunately, Xia Jingyu had tactfully rejected him. Today, she had firmly rejected him. She had also sternly stated that he was not allowed to call her Jingyu. It was clear that he wanted to sever all ties with her. Xia Jingyu sighed in her heart. Why were all men like this? She was a little annoyed. Being too beautiful was sometimes troublesome. Almost all the male friends who got close to her had improper thoughts. For example, Zheng Yilan had been very patient and had not exposed himself for 2 whole years. Initially, he had been discussing with her as a senior without any selfish motive. Xia Jingyu had thought that she had a male friend worth befriending. Until a few months ago, when he had comprehended the holy decree, he had become high-spirited and felt that he had a chance to become the holy king. He was full of confidence and looked down on everything. He even felt that Residence Master Xia had taken a liking to him. Overflowing with confidence, he no longer carefully maintained the pure friendship between them and revealed his inner desires. From time to time, he would hint to her about something. His actions gradually became more and more casual until he made a request a month ago. Since then, she had gradually distanced herself from Zheng Yilan. To put it bluntly, Zheng Yilan was actually a nouveau riche. After his confidence grew, the dark side of his heart was revealed, including his longing for her. Xia Jingyu moved away and sighed in her heart. There was no good man in the world. Just as he was sighing faintly, a figure in purple suddenly barged into his heart. Both of them had comprehended the holy decree, but Su Yu did not ask for anything in return. He imparted the holy decree calmly, without holding anything back. Moreover, from the beginning until the end, his gaze as he gazed at her was clear and without any distracting thoughts. There was only gratitude towards her, and there was absolutely not a trace of improper thoughts. And the source of all of this was the kindness of a single bow. Thinking up to here, Xia Jingyu couldn't help but purse her lips and chuckle. Her smile was like a flower, ethereal, beautiful, pure, and otherworldly. Actually, there were still good men. Wasn't there one right beside her? As Xia Jingyu felt a sense of peace in her heart, she turned her gaze to look at Su Yu's purple-clothed figure. She suddenly felt that if she had really married him, she might not have objected. Only by his side could one feel the fullness and peace of mind. Jing Yilan's expression turned gloomy, and he glared at Su Yu coldly. Humph! What was so great about a person who had just comprehended the holy decree? In terms of holy decree, he can't even withstand a single blow from me. Boom, boom, boom. At the entrance of the arena, intense movements sounded out once more. Everyone looked down and saw 13 middle-aged men with terrifying strength entering the arena one by one. Many of the demon students gasped in surprise. They had all recognized the inspector who was in charge of their training institute. Su Yu had also discovered Fang Yun's presence. That day, he was the one who had exiled Su Yu from the training institute. Su Yu had not forgotten this grudge. The other 12 people were undoubtedly inspectors from the sanctuary. A total of 13 people from the sanctuary had appeared, causing the audience to be extremely excited. Every single person from the sanctuary was a mythical figure in the legends. They were elusive, and yet, 13 of them had appeared at the same time. However, after the 13 legendary figures entered, they all stood respectfully at the two sides of the entrance. They bowed their bodies and lowered their noble heads, not even daring to breathe loudly. It looked like they were respectfully welcoming a supreme and frightening person. The plaza of 10,000 people gradually became silent. The strange actions of the 13 legendary figures had caused them to tremble deeply. Thump, thump, in the strange silence, the sound of light footsteps seemed to be stepping on everyone's hearts. The sound of the footsteps was sometimes far, and sometimes it was near. It was difficult to determine the distance between them. Su Yu's heart shook. What kind of powerful martial artist could give him such an illusion? Thump, thump, the sound of the footsteps was finally no longer faint. At the entrance, an old man in luxurious clothing appeared. The old man was 80 years old, his hair white and face pale, as if he was on the verge of death. His pair of old eyes were filled with a frightening light. Su Yu only took one look before his eyes stung, and he quickly looked away. The rest of the audience felt the same. They could not look at the old man. Su Yu was shocked. Could he be the Holy King? Welcome, Cabinet Elder. The 13 distinguished inspectors knelt on one knee and greeted him in unison. Their voices were loud and clear, piercing through the heavens. Their deep respect reached tens of thousands of miles into the heavens. This person was one of the sanctuary's 9 great cabinet elders. The Holy King was focused on cultivation and had no time to manage the secular world. Everything was handled by the 9 great cabinet elders. One word from each cabinet elder could change the course of a dynasty. Just a stomp of their feet could cause the Fenglin Empire to tremble. If not for the fact that the monarch was bedridden and unconscious, he would have knelt to welcome the arrival of the sanctuary cabinet elders. Swish, swish, swish. Hearing this, the hearts of countless martial artists trembled as they uniformly knelt to welcome them. In the hearts of the Fenglin Empire's martial artists, the sanctuary was the holy land of martial arts gods. The 9 great cabinet elders, on the other hand, were transcendent existences that they had to look up to. The cabinet elder stepped onto the arena as tens of thousands of people knelt to welcome him. He was the head of the 9 great cabinet elders, the fiery minister. The fiery minister was expressionless as he walked to the distinguished guests' stand and took the seat of honor. The 13 inspectors were filled with reverence as they sat below, not daring to act rashly. Let's begin. The fiery minister gently opened his mouth. But the words he uttered were like the sound of a great bell, shocking everyone. Su Yu's body trembled, his soul also trembling slightly. Level 8. Su Yu's pupils shrank to the size of a needle. The aura of a level 8 had appeared during the battle at the Duke of Xianyu's palace, when the first prince had crushed his protective amulet. The fiery minister's abilities were definitely that of a level 8. A frightening fighter who was only 2 steps away from becoming the Holy King. Su Yu was shocked, unable to calm down. This was a level 8. Whoosh! The referee leaped onto the arena, expressionlessly announcing, "The holy meet officially begins. All participants, please collect your holy order." The 16 heavenly dragons of the royal family and the 130 demon students from the martial arts training institutes of the 13 prefectures, a total of 146 people, took turns to go up onto the arena to collect their holy order. Su Yu received one. It was made of an extraordinary material and had the word 9 carved on it. After everyone left the arena, a sealed black box appeared in the hands of the referee. He extended his palm into the box and randomly picked out 10 numbered balls. The following number will enter the first group. Number 1, number 19, number 23. The following number will enter the second group. Number 4, number 6, number 13. Half an hour later, the 146 participants were divided into 15 groups. The first 14 groups had 10 people in each group. Only the last group only had 6 people. Moreover, Su Yu was assigned to the last group. His opponents were only 5 people. After the assignment, the referee loudly announced, "The first round of competition will be an elimination round. The first place of each group will qualify for the top 10 competition." Hearing this, the crowd was in an uproar. Their gazes uniformly shot toward the last group. With only 6 people, the chances of obtaining first place far exceeded the other 14 groups. Countless demon students were envious of Su Yu's group. The first prince sneered, "His luck is not bad, to be assigned to the group with the easiest advancement." The third prince could not help but laugh. Su Yu was very lucky. If he had been in another group, such as Dong Lin's or Du Yuntian's group, he would definitely have been eliminated. Now, however, he had the chance to fight his way into the top 10. Jing Yilin had been paying attention to Su Yu, slightly creasing his brows. "Consider yourself lucky. You had better not meet me." Su Yu's luck was not only because of the small number of members in his group, but also because of another important reason. As for the remaining 5 members, the highest cultivation base was only at level 5 upper tier, while the weakest was only at level 4 peak. With Su Yu's ability to kill a level 5 upper tier in the Xianyu prefecture, there was no doubt that he would easily win first place. The elimination round had officially begun. On the distinguished guests' platform, the fiery minister and the 13 inspectors had calm expressions. Even though the people present were the 10 most outstanding demon students from each prefecture of the empire, their fights did not interest them in the slightest. The elimination round of 15 groups began at the same time. According to the rules, everyone in the same group had to fight all the other members of the group. As such, the time was extremely long. An entire day passed. The elimination round of the 15th group has ended. The winner is contestant number 9, Su Yu. Suddenly, the referee announced in a loud voice. The first group king had been born. The audience below the stage could not help but be in an uproar. What a lucky lad! The other groups are only halfway through, but he has already successfully advanced to the next round. What is even more fortunate is that the abilities of his group members are generally not high. Apart from the level 5 upper tier member, the rest are too weak. If it had been me that year, I would have been able to fight my way into the top 15. Don't underestimate him. Didn't you see him fight against the level 5 upper tier member? He defeated his opponent with one move. This is enough to show that he has the valiant ability to fight above his level. The first prince sneered. Even if he is lucky enough to enter the top 15, he is still at the bottom. He is asking for trouble. The third prince smiled without saying a word, immediately focusing his attention on Dong Lin. With the birth of the first group king, it was inevitable for the distinguished guests to pay attention to him. Realizing that it was a fellow at level 5 lower tier, The crowd could not help but secretly shake their heads. The fiery minister calmly retracted his gaze. Only Fong Yun was slightly taken aback. That day at the Martial Arts Training Institute, he was the one who had personally expelled Su Yu from the institute. He did not expect Su Yu to be lucky enough to fight his way into the top 15 of the Holy Meat. Su Yu returned to the preparation stage and watched the remaining 14 groups fight. Among them, the performances of Du Yuntian, Jing Yilin, and Dong Lin were the most eye-catching. All three of them were strong level 6 fighters, especially Du Yuntian, who was a strong level 6 upper tier. At that moment, Lin Xiao secretly passed a piece of paper to the third prince. The third prince looked at it and his whole body trembled, his face pale. His eyes were filled with worry as he stared at Dong Lin, who was still in the arena. His expression changed several times. Su Yu glanced at the third prince's strange expression and could not help but be surprised. It was the first time he had seen the calm and collected third prince lose his composure. "Third prince, what happened?" Su Yu walked over to ask. Looking closely, he discovered that the third prince's palm was slightly trembling, showing his extreme anxiety and unease. Chapter 53. The first prince had a powerful fighter like Du Yuntian, so the third prince naturally sent people to investigate. Even though the third prince was biding his time, it did not mean that he did not have the ability. Half a day was enough for him to find a lot of information. Su Yu took it and looked at it carefully. His expression was unprecedentedly serious. He is actually the younger brother of the previous Holy Meat's king. Su Yu was shocked. The king who won the previous Holy Meat was named Du Lin. He was the strongest demon and had successfully entered the sanctuary. Du Yuntian was actually his younger brother. If that was all, it would have been fine. Du Lin did not have the ability to interfere with the Holy Meat. The scary thing was that Du Yuntian was more talented than his brother. His abilities had already surpassed his brother, who had won the Holy Meat. It was said that he had challenged the strongest demon students of the martial arts training institutes in the 9 prefectures of the empire. The strongest demon students of the 9 institutes could not last more than 3 moves against him. Du Yuntian was known as the Legend of 3 Moves. No one had ever been able to last more than 3 moves against him. His unprecedented battle record had far surpassed his brother, Du Lin, and he had created an undefeated legend. He was unparalleled in his generation. The Legend of 3 Moves? Su Yu's heart suddenly tightened. There were countless geniuses in the empire. It was not impossible for there to be a king who could defeat the current generation. A huge pressure filled Su Yu's heart. For the first time, his heart was shrouded by a layer of darkness. Even though the third prince tried to remain calm, his eyes flashed, betraying his inner thoughts. He was willing to bet his life on Dong Lin to witness it with all his might. If Dong Lin won, he would obtain a piece of the empire. If Dong Lin lost, he would become a skeleton. But the information he had gathered had pushed the third prince to the bottom. Do you know why Du Yuntian is so powerful? The third prince did not realize that his voice was trembling. His gaze involuntarily shot toward the fiery minister, who was above the crowd. Su Yu's heart was heavy. Why? The third prince laughed bitterly. He stared at the fiery minister with boundless unwillingness. Because Du Yuntian is the fiery minister's disciple. In every holy meet, the top 10 martial artists would become sanctuary disciples. They would be chosen by the 9 ministers. If they were chosen, they would become their disciples and receive guidance from the ministers. In the previous tournament, Du Lin obtained the favor of the fiery minister and was accepted as a disciple by the fiery minister. Then, he found out that Du Lin had a younger brother who was even more talented than him, Du Yuntian. The fiery minister personally rushed to the Du family from the sanctuary to inspect Du Yuntian. He was greatly impressed and stayed in the Du family for several months to guide Du Yuntian in his cultivation, causing his strength to improve by leaps and bounds. If it wasn't for the fact that the Holy King had decreed that one had to pass the Holy Meats test in order to enter the sanctuary, Du Yuntian would have already become the official disciple of the fiery minister. Today it was just a formality. No one could compete with Du Yuntian in terms of strength or background. It could be said that Du Yuntian was the king of the Holy Gate. He is actually the fiery minister's disciple? You even received pointers from the fiery minister? Su Yu's breathing became rapid, and his heart felt extremely stifled. No wonder the third prince lost his composure. No wonder he looked hopeless. No wonder he felt so unwilling. This was a gamble that he could not win. As if sensing the situation here, the first prince, who was not far away, curled up the corners of his lips into a faint sneer, as if he was a monarch who had victory within his grasp. Su Yu and the third prince fell into great shock at the same time. Disregarding the fiery minister, based on strength alone, Du Yuntian was undoubtedly the king of the Holy Gate. Taking a step back, if someone managed to defeat Du Yuntian, would the fiery minister's ancestor be biased and affect the situation? This was a gamble that seemed fair, but in reality there was no chance of winning. Su Yu was destined to lose the moment he chose to participate in the holy meat. But Su Yu had no other way out. Other than obtaining the holy crown, he had no other way out. Clenching his fists, Su Yu calmed himself down. To save the Duke of Xianyu and kill the first prince, there was only one path he could take, and that was to obtain the holy crown. After calming himself down, Su Yu continued to read. He realized that on the paper, there was information on the demon students of the 13 prefectures. Among them, the Xianyu prefecture's Zheng Yilin was highlighted because he was the only demon student who had comprehended the holy decree. Even Du Yuntian had not comprehended the holy decree. Hence, Zheng Yilin was the most unpredictable demon student in the 13 prefectures. Apart from him, there was also the demon king, Chong Nanfei. Chong Nanfei was the #1 demon student of the Jiuquan Prefecture Martial Arts Training Institute. He was at level 6 lower tier, had an extremely high level of perception, and his techniques were extremely powerful. His frightening abilities surpassed all the other geniuses in the Jiuquan Prefecture. It was rumored that he had fought with many of the demon students of the martial arts training institutes and had not lost a single battle. Even Zheng Yilin, who had not comprehended the holy decree, had lost to him. Apart from Du Yuntian, whom he had not fought before, he was undoubtedly the demon king. The two strongest sky dragons of the royal family, Du Yuntian and Dong Lin. The two demon students of the martial arts training institute, Zheng Yilin and Chong Nanfei. These 4 unparalleled geniuses were the main characters of the holy meat. No one could compete with them. With a heavy heart, Su Yu seized the time to train. A day's worth of effort, under the circumstances of time manipulation, was equivalent to 30 days. A month's time was enough for him to comprehend some of the technique. Especially Tempest, which he was only a step away from breaking through to stage 3 top class. Su Yu seized the time to train. The duels in the arena continued. Du Yuntian, Zheng Yilin, and Dong Lin had become the most eye-catching and powerful fighters. Especially Du Yuntian. Even though he had encountered a frightening demon of level 6 lower tier, he still defeated his opponent in 3 moves. Du Yuntian's 3 moves of the mythological technique was not just a legend, but a fact. A day later, all the duels in the groups ended, and the strongest 15 people were chosen. Su Yu opened his eyes at that moment, a tinge of disappointment circulating in his eyes. He had been trying to comprehend the last stage of Tempest for a whole month, but he still felt that he was lacking something. He could not break through and could not use the technique to its fullest potential. At that moment, the referee announced the last round of the duels. The Holy Meat Top 10 competition begins now, the referee announced expressionlessly. In the top 10 competition, 10 out of the 15 people would be chosen. In other words, 5 people would be eliminated. Both the royal family and the martial arts training institutes were extremely nervous. The top 10 of the holy meat would have the right to enter the sanctuary and become disciples of the sanctuary. This was the most crucial battle. The referee was expressionless as he took out 2 numbers from a sealed black box. First match, number 10 Du Yuntian versus number 18 Dong Lin. Du Yuntian's 3 moves of the mythological technique? Dong Lin, one of the 4 great heaven rulers? The audience was in an uproar. No one would have thought that the 2 of them would clash in the top 10 competition. The third prince's pupils shrank, his heart thumped, and his blood flowed faster. To think they would meet so soon. The third prince tried to hide his panic and uneasiness, but he could not hide the hope in his eyes. What if Dong Lin could win? The first prince laughed. Third brother, it looks like the person you chose is not that great. He is not strong enough to compete with me. The third prince pretended to be calm, smiling like a spring breeze. Brother, you worry too much. I nurtured Dong Lin because I valued his talent. I have no other intentions. Hee, that's good. The first prince was in a good mood, but his heart was filled with murderous intent. His third brother was smarter and more capable than him. Given time, he might have a chance to turn the tables. Once he ascended to the throne, the first thing he would do would be to deal with him. The third prince secretly clenched his fists in his sleeves. His heart was filled with anxiety, and his eyes were fixed on Dong Lin. Don't let me down. All my hopes are on you, Dong Lin. The third prince thought to himself. He did not dare blink as he watched the battle carefully. Swoosh, 2 silhouettes flew up the arena. One was Du Yuntian, who had 3 moves. The legend. The other was Dong Lin, a genius. They were both level 6 heaven, proud and arrogant. They both represented the royal family and the interests of the region. Their battle was a secret contest between the first prince and the third prince. The ordinary audience was watching the show, but the dignitaries of the capital were sweating profusely. This battle was related to the change of the dynasty. If Dong Lin lost, the third prince would never be able to rise again. He would soon be killed by the first prince. If Dong Lin won, the third prince might be able to turn the tables. Du Yuntian held the dragon spring sword in his arms. The sword was not out of its sheath, but there was already a trace of sword qi overflowing from it. It was cold and sharp, emitting a peerless sharpness. Dong Lin's blue robe danced in the wind. His eyes were burning with raging flames, and his battle-intent soared into the sky. His eyes were filled with unprecedented seriousness, and his voice was low and sluggish. Du Yuntian, we will have to fight. Du Yuntian refused to accept the challenge at the Heavenly Dragon meeting. They met again at the Holy Meat, and Du Yuntian had no choice but to fight. Du Yuntian sized up Dong Lin indifferently and shook his head. You are no match for me. You think too highly of yourself. Let me crush your so-called confidence. Dong Lin was also an arrogant person. How could he endure Du Yuntian's disdainful gaze? Sting finger. Dong Lin growled and stretched out his index finger. It was as if the sun had risen from the east. It was a faint, fiery red color like a burning finger. An astonishing finger force was like a giant beast that had been lying dormant for a long time, and it had suddenly awakened. The power of a mid-level cultivation technique was extremely powerful. Du Yuntian's eyes were indifferent. He took a step forward, and the dragon's spring sword swept across the world like a thunderbolt. The swift sword only left a cold sword light in the hearts of the audience. Creak, bang, Dong Lin let out a muffled groan and retreated rapidly. His arrogant eyes were filled with horror. Du Yuntian's mid-level cultivation technique, which was at the great perfection stage, was easily swept away by a single sword strike. Most importantly, Du Yuntian did not draw his sword. The sword was not out of its sheath. On the other hand, Du Yuntian was calm and collected. He leisurely held the sword in his arms and said coldly, "The power is not bad, but it is not worthy for me to draw my sword." The conceited Dong Lin suffered a great blow. He snorted angrily. "It is not the end yet." Ha! Dong Lin's 10 palms and fingers were surrounded by a dense flow of qi. It was actually true energy that could be faintly seen through his body. Releasing true energy was something that only experts above the 7th heaven of the martial path could do. However, experts at the 6th heaven of the martial path could barely release their true energy from their body with the help of a powerful top-level cultivation technique. The power was unpredictable. Faint red light flowed like the morning sun. It was misty, and seemed real at the same time illusory. 9 pulse godly sword. Dong Lin growled. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 9 of his 10 fingers shot out true energy and slashed at Du Yuntian in the air. The 3rd prince's heart was in his throat. This was Dong Lin's trump card. The 3rd prince had paid a huge price to find this top-level cultivation technique for Dong Lin. Chapter 54. Those who were able to comprehend superior techniques were all people with extremely high levels of comprehension. To think that in the martial arts training institutes, where geniuses were as numerous as the clouds, only the monstrous students were qualified to read superior techniques. In reality, even if they were monstrous students, it was still rare for them to successfully comprehend the technique. The fact that Dong Lin could successfully comprehend superior cultivation techniques was proof of his high level of comprehension. Du Yuntian's indifferent eyes turned serious for the first time as the 9 rays of sword qi attacked him. Flowing cold sword. Du Yuntian finally made his move. Clang! The sword radiance scattered in all directions and flashed coldly. It was like a ray of cold light that pierced through the sky. Whoosh! It was as fast as the flowing cold sword and sliced through the 9 rays of true qi. The remaining force of the attack swept across and hit Dong Lin's chest. Dong Lin let out a blood-curdling scream as a long bloody wound appeared on his chest. His body flew backward and fell out of the arena. Dong Lin was defeated. He was defeated by Du Yuntian after 2 of the 3 legendary moves. As Dong Lin fell out of the arena, something in the 3rd prince's heart shattered. His face turned pale as a sheet. His only chance to turn the tables had been destroyed. He had no way out. There were only 2 options for him. He could wait for his death and be killed by the 1st prince, or he could flee to another country and live in exile like a stray dog. The huge failure had shattered all of the 3rd prince's hopes. Lin Xiao was stunned for a long time. His eyes were red and tears rolled down his cheeks. He was desolate. Such a good prince, why was his fate so bad that he had to end up like this? He could foresee the 3rd prince's fate. Lin Xiao wiped away his tears and knelt in front of the 3rd prince. This might be the last time in his life that he would be loyal to the 3rd prince. "The carriage is ready. Master, please leave the capital city." The escape route had been prepared a year ago. They had been waiting for this day. A group of elites would escort the 3rd prince and kill their way out of the capital city. Lin Xiao would lead the secret guards to fight against the pursuers. Their power was weak. How could they fight against the capital city? It could be imagined that one day Lin Xiao would fall into a pool of blood, his corpse would be left in the wilderness, and he would be erased from this world. However, even if he were to die, Lin Xiao would still hold the sword in his hand and use the last of his life to fight for even the slightest hope of survival. This was because the 3rd prince had done him a favor. He had saved his dying parents, given him a chance to stand out, and had given him trust that he had never had before. In life, he belonged to the 3rd prince, and in death, he belonged to the 3rd prince. He had no regrets dying for the 3rd prince. The 3rd prince looked up to the sky and laughed bitterly. "The situation is already hopeless. Do I need to use your blood to pave the way for my life? Master, there's no time to lose. Please be on your way." Lin Zhao's eyes were red as he solemnly urged. The first prince watched this scene from afar and laughed coldly in his heart. Do you think I'll let you escape from the city? In order to surround and capture Su Yu, the imperial capital had long been sealed off by him. The entrance to the city was guarded by a large number of elite. Anyone who left the city had to be checked. It was a pipe dream for the third prince to kill his way out. At the distinguished guest stand, the fiery cabinet master had a gratified smile on his cold face. His mouth, which had been taut all along, finally opened for the first time. Du Yuntian, not bad. The 13 inspectors beside him knew that Du Yuntian was the fiery cabinet master's appointed disciple. They smiled and complimented him. The referee announced Du Yuntian's victory. Then, he took out 2 more number tags. Next match, number 9 Su Yu versus number 17 Chong Nanfei. The crowd was excited when the news spread. The Demon King, Chong Nanfei? There were many rumors about Chong Nanfei, and he was the most dazzling genius of this year. The crowd was excited. Being able to observe such a strong martial artist in action would be beneficial to their cultivation. What made the crowd even more excited was that the Demon King's opponent was Su Yu. He was the luckiest darling of this year. Not only was he assigned to the 6-man group, but his group members were all weaker. He was lucky enough to enter the top 15. It seems like Su Yu has used up all his luck. That's why he is so unlucky to encounter the Demon King, Chong Nanfei. Haha, isn't that right? If his opponent was a level 5 peak, he might be lucky enough to fight his way into the top 10 and become a sanctuary disciple. Of course, these were all fantasies. Even if he were lucky enough to fight his way into the top 10, he would still be rejected by the sanctuary if he could not pass the test. There were many instances in history where people who relied on their luck were eventually expelled. Hearing Su Yu's name, the third prince's dazed eyes gradually calmed down. He let out a bitter smile. Take Su Yu and leave together. He would have to flee for his life eventually. Bringing Su Yu, who was in the same boat, along with him would be considered the last bit of friendship they had. Lin Xiao was anxious. If he started to flee now, he would have more hope. If he dragged on, it would be even more difficult. Su Yu, you have caused the third prince's death. Lin Xiao blamed Su Yu in his heart. The first prince had a playful smile. Chong Nanfei? His abilities are slightly stronger than Dong Lin's. Su Yu, looks like you are not fated to be in the top 10, haha. Once Su Yu was defeated, he would be hunted down by the entire empire. Chong Nanfei was 16 years old. He was handsome and elegant. He wore a fluttering white robe and had a light smile on his face as he elegantly entered the arena. At that moment, he attracted the attention of many young ladies. There were many who had their hearts set on him. Su Yu's eyes flashed. He tapped the ground lightly with the tips of his feet. Like the shadow of a white cloud, like duckweed floating on the waves of a river, he gracefully flew into the arena. Chong Nanfei's purple robe fluttered in the wind. His fairy-like handsome face glowed. He was dazzling and confident. Actually, disregarding his abilities, Su Yu is very handsome. Unfortunately, he is a little too young. An 18-year-old young lady pouted. Hee, I also think that Su Yu is better looking than Chong Nanfei. Another young lady's beautiful eyes were filled with splendor. The young lady's whispered words entered Xia Jingyu's ears. She was worried and could not help but smile. She thought to herself, Su Yu's charm is not only in his appearance. His charm lies within him. Chong Nanfei was surprised. He was proud of his extraordinary appearance, but compared to Su Yu, he felt inferior. It was as if his aura was inferior to Su Yu's. A shred of admiration appeared on his face. Brother Su, you and I are both elegant people. I will not bully the weak. If you can withstand 20 moves from me, I will consider it my loss. How about that? Chong Nanfei was arrogant. He felt that his abilities were much higher than Su Yu's. He also admired Su Yu's extraordinary appearance and temperament. He could not bear to bully Su Yu. Su Yu could not help but have a good impression of Chong Nanfei. He smiled and rejected, "Thank you for your good intentions, Brother Chong. I wish to fight with all my might." "Good. Brother Su's character is noble and unsullied. I will do my best." Chong Nanfei's admiration for Su Yu grew. Su Yu's unwillingness to take advantage of Su Yu showed that he was noble and unsullied. "Brother Su, be careful." Chong Nanfei took a deep breath and reminded Su Yu. He extended his index and middle fingers, forming a sword. Lotus sword finger. Whoosh, whoosh. The sword finger's body was surrounded by a pale green glow. It was like a summer lotus leaf, overflowing with greenery. The sword finger danced in the air. A ball of weak white light flowed through the tip of his finger. Under the contrast of greenery, it looked like a pure white lotus. The green glow circulated and the white lotus danced. In an instant, it was like a lotus pond with a vast expanse of blue wave. There were clear white lotuses everywhere. Stage 3 upper class of a medium-level cultivation technique. Average, the fiery minister commented indifferently. But the words "average" made the Jiuquan Prefecture Martial Arts Training Institute's inspector heave a sigh of relief. The fiery minister was known for his strictness. The average, he said, was no small matter. It looked like the Jiuquan Prefecture Martial Arts Training Institute had managed to avoid this. If the Martial Arts Training Institute performed poorly, the corresponding inspector would be punished accordingly. The other 12 inspectors more or less revealed envious gazes. They continued to watch the fight uneasily. Su Yu did not panic in the face of danger. His eyes flashed as he displayed tempest. In an instant, a snowstorm blew and the cold wind whistled. The surrounding air instantly became 30% colder. Threads of cold energy caused the air to freeze into an icy fog. In an instant, it was as if a world of ice and snow had descended. Su Yu's kick was filled with endless coldness. It was as if an ice dragon had been born, freezing everything in the world. Another medium-level cultivation technique at stage 3 upper class? Only 14 years old. Average, the fiery minister commented indifferently. Apart from Fang Yun, the other 12 inspectors could not help but praise Su Yu. To be able to comprehend to such a level at the age of 14, his level of comprehension might even be above Chong Nanfei and Dong Lin. The royal family has indeed nurtured a good talent. There were very few people who knew of Su Yu's past. After all, Su Yu had not become famous throughout the continent. Only the locals of the Xianyu prefecture knew about him. Fang Yun's forehead was covered in cold sweat. If the fiery minister knew that he was the one who had driven Su Yu away, he might reprimand him. After all, the Martial Arts Training Institute was a branch of the sanctuary. They gathered the strongest geniuses in the world. On the other hand, the royal family did not have as obvious an advantage as the Martial Arts Training Institute. If the royal family surpassed them, the sanctuary would be embarrassed. On the arena, the two clashed. One was hard to distinguish between real and fake. His sword pointed repeatedly. The other was covered in ice. It was extremely strange. Clang, clang, thud, thud. In the direct clash, the scene of Su Yu collapsing at the first blow did not appear, as many of the spectators had imagined. The Demon King, Chong Nanfei, had a shocked expression. He retreated 3 steps, flicking the thick ice between his fingers. He was shocked. A medium-level cultivation technique of stage 3 upper class? As for Su Yu, he took 4 steps back. Under the tempest, he was slightly weaker than his opponent for the first time. But the Demon King was shocked. He was a level 6 lower tier, 2 levels higher than Su Yu. Even with such a huge difference in cultivation level, he was only slightly stronger than Su Yu? This could be attributed to Su Yu's physique. After being baptized by the Jade Fire Marrow, his physique was far stronger than that of a normal person. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, Su Yu would have been sent flying by that attack. Again, Su Yu's eyes were filled with excitement. That attack with his full power had shown signs of him reaching top class. Sure enough, actual combat was the best training. Furthermore, Chong Nanfei's abilities were similar to his. There was no better whetstone than Chong Nanfei. Chong Nanfei stopped underestimating Su Yu, his fighting spirit rising. Brother Su, be careful. I will not hold back any more. Lotus sword finger. The sword finger danced like a swaying lotus, dazzling and beautiful. The power of the finger this time was more than 30% stronger than before. Su Yu was not angry. Instead, he was elated. Thud, thud, thud. This time, Su Yu retreated 6 meters, almost falling off the arena. But Su Yu's eyes were filled with joy. With a low grunt, he tangled with the Demon King, Chong Nanfei. Thump, 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 clang, clang, clang. The two of them moved like the wind. They were equally talented, and equally powerful. The audience below the arena was dumbfounded. Su Yu can actually fight against the 4 great heaven rulers? Doesn't this mean that he has the ability to fight his way into the top 10? The first prince had suddenly stood up. His face was filled with shock. An unprecedented fear filled his heart. Su Yu's strength was beyond imagination. If this continued, it was not impossible for Su Yu to enter the top 10. Once he became a sanctuary disciple, he could return after his training and avenge the Duke of Xianyu. Wouldn't that be? Chapter 55. If he had known that Su Yu was so difficult to deal with and had such terrifying potential, he would not have touched the Duke of Xianyu in the first place. But the first prince had no other way out now. The hatred between him and Su Yu was a blood feud that could not be resolved. Su Yu's vow that the heavens, the earth, the sun, and the moon could be his witness. If he did not kill the first prince, he would never be a human again. His words still reverberated in the first prince's heart. The only thing he could do now was to prevent Su Yu from entering the top 10. Otherwise, the consequences would be dire. Du Yuntian, if you fight him, remember to kill him. Do not give him a chance to live. Even if you offend the sanctuary. The first prince's heart was filled with murderous intent. Du Yuntian creased his brows and slowly nodded. I know. The day I fight him will be the day he dies. Even though the holy meat prohibited killing, Du Yuntian was the most outstanding genius. Moreover, the fiery minister was his future teacher. If he killed Su Yu and then used an accident as an excuse, who would dare to pursue the matter? The third prince's dull eyes flickered as he blurted out in surprise, Lin Xiao, what's going on? When Su Yu fought Lin Xiao, the tempest was not as powerful as this. Lin Xiao was also dumbfounded. Could it be that Su Yu held back when he used the tempest? The third prince's miserable heart suddenly had a glimmer of hope. What if Su Yu, pulling himself together, the third prince's gaze locked onto Su Yu. In the arena, Chong Nanfei became more and more frightened as the battle continued. This battle had already lasted for 3 hours. Even with his physical strength, he was gradually losing strength. On the other hand, Su Yu was still alive and kicking, more energetic than him. Is this kid a reincarnated demonic beast? Why is his body so strange? Chong Nanfei was extremely depressed. Suddenly, Su Yu, who was in the midst of battle, seemed to enter a strange state. His body was surrounded by a faint cold fog. A shred of vitality surged in his heart. Creak. Suddenly, Su Yu awoke from his state of enlightenment. He opened his eyes. The ground beneath his feet was frozen by the cold air. An unprecedented power filled Su Yu's body. Su Yu looked up at Chong Nanfei and thanked him gratefully. Thank you, Brother Chong. Chong Nanfei was angry and amused. You actually used me as a whetstone. Good kid. Since that's the case, this Chong won't hold back anymore. As the monstrous genius king, it was impossible for Chong Nanfei to only comprehend the third stage of a medium-grade cultivation technique. Be careful, the next move is my famous consummate skill. Chong Nanfei's expression was solemn. Sword points to the vault of heaven. Chong Nanfei roared. Two of his fingers were like a sword, and like a cold sword, it cut through the clouds. The air exploded and whimpered incessantly, as if it was unable to withstand the might of this sword. The fiery minister gently nodded his head. Greater mastery of the first stage of a high-class cultivation technique is stronger than Dong Qilin's first stage of the first stage. The 30 inspectors, especially those from the Jiuquan Prefecture Martial Arts Training Institute, heaved a sigh of relief and were filled with pride. As the monstrous genius king, Chong Nanfei naturally had his outstanding points. Su Yu had a faint smile on his face. He wasn't afraid. Instead, he was happy. Blizzard! This kick seemed to have opened the door to a world of ice and snow. The cold wind howled in all directions. Snowflakes filled the sky, drifting over the 4 seas. The enchanting wind and snow circled around Su Yu's body, blurring his vision. The storm of ice and snow turned into an ice storm and descended upon the mortal world. Howl, faintly, the roar of a dragon shook the entire arena. Half of the arena was covered by the ice storm. The cold penetrated the hearts of the people and froze everything in the world. The fiery minister calmly commented, "To be able to comprehend a medium-level cultivation technique at top class on the spot, his level of comprehension is not bad." The 12 inspectors were shocked as well. Only Fong Yun was drenched in cold sweat, his heart filled with regret. He should have killed Su Yu back then. If the fiery minister were to investigate Su Yu's background, wouldn't he be in trouble? The first prince's heart sank, and he could not help but ask, "Du Yuntian, how confident are you that you can kill him?" Du Yuntian's gaze was calm, and he coldly spat out 2 words, "One sword will do." On the arena, the sword finger and Su Yu's top-class fist collided. Rumble! Chong Nanfei let out a groan, his body covered in a layer of white frost, and he retreated 10 steps. Su Yu was still shrouded in snow, and he also retreated about 10 steps. This battle was actually a draw. Su Yu had actually tied with the monstrous genius king. How is this possible? Su Yu is not even comparable to me. How could he have tied with Chong Nanfei? Dong Lin clutched his bleeding chest, his eyes filled with disbelief. Jing Yilan's expression was gloomy. He had never seen Su Yu as an opponent, until today. The third prince's eyes lit up again, even brighter than when he faced Dong Lin. To some extent, Su Yu was stronger than Dong Lin. Chong Nanfei's expression was grave. A high-level cultivation technique had actually been tied with a low-level cultivation technique. The fiery minister indifferently commented, "Even though Chong Nanfei has cultivated a high-level cultivation technique, he is not mature enough. Su Yu's medium-level cultivation technique is at top class, and he is mature enough. Coupled with his extraordinary body, it is reasonable for him to be tied." In this battle, Chong Nanfei's weakness had been exposed. He was too ambitious. He had cultivated a high-level cultivation technique before his medium-level cultivation technique had reached top class. In the end, both of them had cultivated their techniques to their peak, and he was tied with Su Yu. "I admit defeat." Chong Nanfei walked down the arena. Even though he had suppressed Su Yu's cultivation level and cultivation technique, he was still tied. To some extent, he had already lost. "Thank you, Brother Chong, for your help." Su Yu cupped his fists in gratitude. Chong Nanfei glared at him. "Don't celebrate too early. I will prepare myself and fight you again during the top 10 matches." With his abilities, it would not be difficult for him to enter the top 10. He would not lose the right to enter the top 10 if he was defeated. He still had a chance to enter the top 10. Number 9, Su Yu wins. The referee praised. To be able to defeat Chong Nanfei, there was no doubt that Su Yu had the right to enter the top 10. As such, Su Yu could become a sanctuary disciple. If Su Yu gave up on revenge and surrendered during the top 10 matches, he would still be a genius of the 10 great holy factions. He would be able to enter the sanctuary and enter the sanctuary, the holy land of millions of martial artists. In the future, he would become an unparalleled martial artist. But if he did not kill the first prince, Su Yu would never be a human. Since the opportunity was right in front of him, he did not want to wait too long. He wanted to obtain first place and kill the first prince. The first prince's confidence in victory had long been shattered. A thread of worry surfaced in his heart. In the event that Su Yu did not fight Du Yuntian and admitted defeat, he would still be one of the top 10 geniuses of the Holy Sanctum and would be able to enter the sanctuary. What if he hid in the sanctuary to train? What if he came out to seek revenge in the future? It was easy to dodge a spear in the open, but difficult to guard against a stab in the dark. Once Su Yu's cultivation level was high enough, he could assassinate the first prince. Even though the first prince was the monarch, he might not be able to survive. No. I must make him fight Du Yuntian. I must make him die before entering the sanctuary. But how can I make Su Yu fight me? The first prince's eyes gradually narrowed and a cold light flashed in them. Doesn't he hate me? In that case, I will make him hate me even more. I will make him disregard everything and use the promise of first place in the holy meat to kill me. This way, he will have no choice but to fight Du Yuntian. A malicious smile appeared on the face of the first prince. He gave a few instructions to his confidant, who immediately ran away. Half a day later, one of the third prince's confidants secretly reported. Lin Xiao looked at it and his expression changed. He hurriedly passed it to the third prince. With just one look, the third prince's expression changed. He was furious. How dare he? There was only one line of words. The Duke of Xianyu will be executed in advance tonight. This was the secret agent that the third prince had planted in the imperial prison. Lin Xiao was furious. It must be the first prince. He felt threatened by Su Yu and decided to execute the Duke of Xianyu in advance to prevent future trouble. At that moment, the top 10 competition ended. The 10 holy geniuses returned to the preparation area, envied by the crowd. They had half an hour to rest before the final battle. Su Yu returned to the third prince's side. He noticed that the third prince was looking at him with a hint of sympathy. Even Lin Xiao lowered his head, not daring to look at Su Yu. A sense of foreboding welled up in Su Yu's heart. Third prince, did something happen? Su Yu asked seriously. After hesitating for a moment, the third prince said, Su Yu, I hope you do not get agitated after hearing this. Maintain control. The Duke of Xianyu may be executed tonight. The third prince could not hide his helplessness. The first prince had his ailing father under house arrest and was in control of the court. The third prince wanted to save the Duke of Xianyu but was powerless. Normally, the court would execute important criminals in the middle of the day. For the first prince to execute the Duke in the middle of the night, it was obvious that the first prince was in a hurry. At? Su Yu felt as if he had suffered a heavy blow. He felt the world spinning. The Duke of Xianyu was going to be executed? Ever since he found out that the Duke was still alive, Su Yu's cold heart had gradually regained some hope. But the Duke of Xianyu was going to be executed tonight? The sudden news struck Su Yu's heart. According to his plan, he would obtain the Holy Crown, kill the first prince, and clear the Duke of Xianyu's name. However, Chu Feng's execution tonight had completely disrupted his plans. Father-in-law was going to be executed tonight? This thought caused Su Yu's heart to tremble. Su Yu, pull yourself together, the third prince lightly shouted, causing Su Yu to recover from his shock. Su Yu's eyes were once again filled with vigor. An unprecedented chill burst forth. First prince. Su Yu's eyes were filled with a monstrous killing intent. His murderous intent was directed at the first prince. With a mocking smile, the first prince remained calm, ignoring Su Yu's murderous intent. Whoosh, a few figures stood in front of the first prince. They were the first prince's level 6 bodyguards. There were 3 of them. Du Yuntian flashed over, his eyes filled with disdain. If you want to die, I can grant you your wish. Hiding in the protection of the bodyguards, the first prince was at ease. Occasionally, he shot a mocking look at Su Yu, meaning, "What can you do to me?" The future monarch, surrounded by experts, Su Yu could not do anything to him. Trying his best to restrain his mind, Su Yu tried to maintain control, suppressing the thought of a life and death struggle. Rationality triumphed over hatred. Attacking now was equivalent to looking down on the holy faction. The first prince and the others did not need to act. The holy faction would kill Su Yu on the spot. Taking a few deep breaths, Su Yu's chest rose and fell violently, showing his boundless anger and murderous intent. Thinking back to that day, the Duke of Xianyu sacrificed himself to save him and Xian'er. He was engulfed in flames. Before he died, his desolate cry reverberated in Su Yu's heart. Grief and indignation filled his eyes.